Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last episode of By the Numbers before Christmas.
Oh,
see? I brought it up, mate. I'm knackered. I literally just woke up from a nap. It's Christmas, right? So I'm doing what I like to do at Christmas, which is ball out of control. Just huge amounts of meals and feasts and everything, you know, all the time. So I've just literally woke up. So you boys, that's Sam, the producer, and Dunk or G, you're going to have to carry the show today. So,
okay. Problem is, everything I was thinking of was inappropriate, so I just decided not to say it. It's one of the first times I've ever attempted that sort of self-restraint. You know? I actually was thinking in my own brain, don't say that. Yeah, skip over that, maybe. That's wait for something good to come along.
So, and of course, looking forward to getting around to watching The Last Jedi. Great film, Duncan, isn't it? You know, soon to enter into
here's the mad thing about it, right? Yeah. Is first of all, I mean, I'm sure no one will have missed this, but obviously I don't give a fuck about any of the sequels or prequels to Star Wars. They're all garbage except like the first three.
Yeah.
So that's actually why, in a weird way, it's actually not that bad, because I feel like the fact that it's annoying people who did like those shit Star Wars, I'm kind of into that a little bit. Like, I'm enjoying them having a shit time. Yep. And then beyond that, I just can't really see what they dislike so much compared to the others. You know, that's the part that I don't really understand. It's sort of like that thing where one of the stupidest components of current politics, right, is the notion that there even is such a thing as the alt-right, right? Because as far as I can tell, being someone with experience of gamers, 90% of the people they think are like this political movement are just doing what I've just described there, but to people who are politically on the left. They're just trolling them, right? And just being like, oh, I'd just like to see you mad because I don't give a fuck, you know. That's kind of how I feel about The Last Jedi. Essentially, I have already tied in the notion that I'm in any way some sort of alt-right member with the fact that somehow I don't dislike The Last Jedi as much as possible. Have I become a sort of contrarian parody of myself?
I'm afraid so, Duncan. It's been a slow and steady process, but you have actually arrived at peak Thorin. It's a shame, mate. I miss old Thorin. But, you know, it is what it is. So, look, last...
also reference that sick Kanye song there.
No, I'm definitely not going to. So, look, obviously The Last Jedi is shite. So let's talk about some Counter-Strike. So we had a few stories that were left over from the last episode we did that we didn't get round to. So we're going to kind of just wrap those up quickly now. This one, Duncan, broke my heart. I'm sure it broke yours as well. It is the sad news about Simple and the fact that he has signed a 2-year contract extension with Navi. You like to see? I took you one direction there. People were like, "Oh God, who's died or something?" No. He's as good as, in career terms, he signed a 2-year extension with Navi. They even did a press release with a picture of Simple signing the contract, because obviously you would want that terrible mistake framed in time forever.
What you couldn't see was out of the shot the guy with the Kalashnikov pointed at his family.
See him. You could see the guy who looks like Bigger Moses, though. So, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on this, because I don't really understand the thought process. Like, sure, they brought in Electronic. You've obviously got to keep Simple. He's so integral to the team. But I've said it many times, 2-year contracts in the current landscape for most esports titles is a terrible decision for the player. And what sort of reassurances must they have given Simple? Because he was on stream saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. My contract's up for renewal. I need to think about my future. And yet here he is, all smiles, signing a 2-year extension to stay in a team that even at the peak form of his career, he can't carry through to tier 1 tournaments. Yes, they did win DreamHack Winter, but also, yes, I'm not sure that counts for anything these days. So what do you make of all of this?
I mean, first of all, I haven't necessarily given up on the new Navi lineup. They haven't had that long still, you know. They've only had a few, I think there's like a few online games, and then, like you said, there's one LAN, basically. They haven't really had the chance to fail outright or turn anything around. So I haven't necessarily given up on the idea they can be decent with this lineup. I do think in the future they probably need changes, but I would assume that's one of those scenarios where you've got to wait till after the major before you can start looking at these things. I will say, actually, well, now I think about it, that's also a wrinkle that you can throw in there that I hadn't actually thought about with the major rule changes, which is that if you think it's a nightmare now that, they couldn't get electronic for all this time because a very small org like Flipside, who's never going to do anything aside from occasionally getting the majors, was holding his contract. Well, imagine how bad it's going to be now when teams that just qualify from minors get the stickers and get in the majors. It's going to become a nightmare. These buyouts are going to get worse, Rich. I think that problem will now be exacerbated by the minor situation because now even CIS minor teams might have ridiculous buyouts because they'll be getting all the sticker money, etc., won't they?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the sticker situation, actually. I suppose we can segue into that. For me, I wrote an article over at the E-League website, and I was quite surprised, actually, to see the sort of community being, players especially, being resistant to the idea of 24 teams and all of the teams getting stickers and signature stickers. I saw lots of players saying, it was always an honor for me to get a sticker, and I had to work so hard to get one. And you get one for just essentially being in the qualifier now? I don't like that. But, we've had this system of the stickers and the money going to orgs and players for a few years now, and there hasn't really been a lot of trickle down. You get like one surprise organization that maybe comes through once in a while. Generally, it's the same old names going to the major, bar or 2-1 surprises. How else are we supposed to distribute the wealth? How else are we supposed to get smaller teams, investing in Counter-Strike and saying it's worth it to have a team if we don't spread that money via these in-game purchases? And just to link it to a story that I covered that perhaps some people who watch the show don't know, but you will if you check the video about it in my channel. There was a League of Legends player called Licrit who was banned by Riot Games for coming out and saying that people weren't paying in the Russian region, in the CIS region, that they couldn't afford it. They were hemorrhaging cash, losing money, and as a result, even players like him, a top player in the region, didn't get any salary and had waited for a year, and the salary hadn't materialized. And when he said that publicly, Riot took the decision to ban him for 6 months because he said he hopes the CIS region should die out. Now, one of the things that's actually going to counter organizations not picking up Counter-Strike teams in the CIS region, which we know is a growth region, is now the stickers. So I personally see it as a good thing, but I wanted to get your take on it all as well.
The thing that's so baffling about that Licorice story as well is, as you said, you actually, like the way you described it there is exactly the problem, right? People might think, you must be somehow spinning that or interpreting it. No, that's literally what he said. He never said anything outrageous. So as far as I can tell, to actually really get mad at that, you would have to be one of these people who is so ridiculous about language that somehow you actually think him saying to die out means he actually wants everyone to die, or something that would, never be in any way the context.
Justification.
Because obviously, at this point, we're just going to have to shut language itself down, because literally every piece of language that you use isn't literally the thing you're talking about. It's all bloody a metaphor for something else or symbolic in it. So at the end of the day, we're just going to be left with no descriptive words whatsoever. It's not just going to be a conversation.
Yeah, it reminds me of a certain book. Can't remember the name of it. It was the name of a year, 80s, I think. I don't know. Strange. But what do you make for the sticker situation overall? Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good thing. I was very surprised to see other players come out and almost sort of lobby for depriving other players of potentially having the stickers.
The one thing I will say that I'm not a fan of, and this just goes across the board for, in fact, any area of life, any area of esports, is any sort of scenario, essentially any sort of socialism, basically. So I don't really still to this day understand the way the stickers work. Why is it that isn't it, as far as I know, that you buy the capsule and then just shares all the money out against everyone? How does that work exactly?
So my understanding always was that if you got a capsule, the money gets sort of distributed between. But if you buy stickers directly on the marketplace,
right, that's how it works. And then they get cut of it, right?
Yeah.
So I see what they mean with that, but I just never understood the first part, why you would make it collective. To me, the whole point of the stickers is supposed to be, I like this team and I like this player. So I would have thought Valve themselves would directly sell the sticker, which would also be a great way to encourage teams funnily enough, to help Valve and their game by building their viewer base and therefore actually engage with their viewers, because then they're more likely to get the stickers, and it would all kind of be like, it would all be what the fuck's the word? I don't know. It would all feed into itself, wouldn't it? It would sustain itself in that particular respect. So I've never really been a fan of the idea that like you just share the money out. I don't really see what you've done to earn that in a way. I am also not a big fan of this approach where basically now just getting out of a minor gets you straight into the major and gets you a sticker. I do think that you haven't really done enough at that point in time. And I can kind of understand the prestige angle for other people. But then again, I mean, I've already been attacked on the other approach, haven't I? Where I personally don't think just qualifying for a major is some massive fucking deal where you should be jumping up and down and going mad and stuff. You know, like if you're actually a serious contender, come on, like it's all right, but don't go mad over it. So personally, I think you should have hierarchy of prestige. I think the problem for me maybe is that there's just stickers on often. Maybe there should be some sort of special level to it where, you know, if you're placed in the top 8 like a Legends, maybe yours is a special holo foil sticker that's worth twice as much or something. You know, something like that. I would like some sort of a mixture because, yeah, I agree. Have something to support the lesser teams, give them a little bit of incentive. But I also, I can kind of see the player perspective in as much as, what if I'm just placing Legends status every major? What, and you get the same sticker because you came in out of the CIS minor? By the way, just as a sidebar, right, in line with my tweet the other day where I said that in 2018, I will only be playing offense. I will not be playing defense. What I meant by that was I just get sick and tired of draining my own energy, explaining myself when the people I'm explaining myself to had no interest in ever understanding my opinion. And that's
they don't care about your explanation.
Exactly. Yeah. So what I realized was that's actually part of their approach. They want to waste your energy and waste your time and irritate you. So, for example, I'm not ever going to, ever again in my life, waste my time pointing out that when I criticize teams that are objectively bad getting out of the CIS minor, that has nothing to do with Navi and Gambit. What would it have to do with that? That's not, in no way is it connected. So, unsurprisingly, I don't think it's very good on the level of competitive integrity that you've basically made a loophole where teams from regions that aren't very good just get into the major. Like, I used to love the old system where the whole point was, yeah, you could still get a chance at the major from these bad regions, but you had to make it out the real qualifier. You actually had, like, admittedly, yeah, Vegas Squadron kind of pushed the boat out where they like barely got out because they just beat the worst teams in the qualifier, if you remember last time. But even then, that's not going to happen very often. So typically when teams get through, like famously, the Splice one's the best example, I think. Because when Splice got through, they actually beat some half-decent teams to do it. So I was like, fair play, you can't complain with that. They're not a team I'd consider good, but they made it. So I don't really like the fact that you just qualify straight to the major. I do think that does demean the major a little bit. And also, just in terms of being fair, it is bullshit that NIP has to play an online qualifier to get to the minor and fail. Meanwhile, if you come from Asia, you're never going to be in the online qualifier if you're a known team, are you? You're never in your life.
Yeah,
that's kind of bullshit.
Yeah, so I sort of understand it because, you know, there's no way, is there, to sort of effectively, like, in the Asian region where you've only got a few teams that are really serious. I mean, like, it's definitely grown in China, even though I say this all the time. That is an area, a region that is just replete with problems. And some of the results are just insane. You know, there's some very dubious stuff going on over in the Chinese scene still that I don't think we'll ever get a handle on, but you know, that's a separate discussion. But obviously outside of those, like that handful of Chinese teams, there's not really a lot else going on. You got like the MVP guys, you know, you got, I mean,
which why I made this video that I put out the other day that basically said inadvertently what they've done is the team that's been boosted the most by this is Renegades. Because now, if you're an NA player, as long as they still have the 3 Australians, there's your easy route to the major to sticker money, and they're an half-decent team. Like, you might already want to play from anyway because they're in the NA region. Like, somehow dodge. Like, I've always thought that never made any sense to me. Like, so which are you? Like, at least I'll give fair play to Riot, right? You at least have to declare for a fucking region. You can't just go, I'm actually Australasian. Oh, cool. Here's the Australasian / Asian minor. Oh, but I also want to play in NA and represent NA. Well, fucking hell. Which is it, you know? Like, you can't do both. Oh, wait, we can. And every single year, we can continue to complain that the Asia minor is scheduled at the same time as an explicitly NA and EU only league, while not bothering to add the caveat that if we weren't shit, we wouldn't even need the minor. We'd just be in the major every time. I've never understood that complaint. It's literally the number one fucking first world problem I think I've ever heard of, you know.
No, I will agree with you there. I mean, obviously I've got a lot of love for the guys over at Renegades, but they did right. They were the LA Renegades, and then they rebranded to the Detroit Renegades. What the fuck are the Detroit Renegades doing in the Asian qualifier? If you can explain that to me, is that what Trump was talking about when he said they were shipping the jobs overseas? I don't know how you get away with that. So that is something I think they need to take a look at for sure. And again, if the Detroit Renegades competing in the fucking Asian minor, that's one Asian team that also isn't, and perhaps there are some small teams that might like that opportunity. But back to your original point, it's this for me, that the Asian ones, sure, they didn't even have a qualifier essentially this time. But how do you expand interest in that region unless you offer the sort of carrot at the end of the stick that is you come through with the minor, you get through with the major, and I think Valve have always imagined the major as a regional competition with all the best teams from all over the world coming. So I can't speak for Valve obviously, but maybe in their minds they're thinking, sure, Europe is a super competitive region, and that's great, but we would like every region to be a super competitive region, and we're not going to do that if we take away slots from those territories that haven't got an abundance of great teams.
Well, okay, what I would essentially say is this is a classic example of what I think happens all the time in the world right now, where someone says, here's a problem, can we agree this is a problem? And then say it's something quite reasonable, climate change, war, terrorism, everyone will go, yeah, that is a problem. They then immediately go, here's my solution. And if you do not agree with my solution, you deny this problem exists. Well, obviously not. That's not even vaguely a tenable intellectual position, is it? So I would say to the person from Valve, okay, you've got a history of esports that goes back 15 plus years, all different regions, games that involved interactions between different regions, games where regions grew up in the games. So a region wasn't that good at the beginning of a game, then by the end of a game it was very good. I'd say go and study all that, have some sort of a white paper made where you show me how your growth will be formed by offering these rewards. Because at the moment, what's happening is someone's basically just saying, there's a problem, none of us know what to do. So just do this. It's like, well, I don't follow. I don't see why the same team that before couldn't make it or wasn't somehow putting enough money is now like, well, if we make the major, here's twice as much money, and then now suddenly we're all good. Like I don't see the sort of chain of evolution in it myself,
With that in mind, then not having the answers, I mean, can you think of an alternative way to do things that would still see a fair and even representation globally, while also still sort of encouraging an aspirational aspect within the regions where we should all want Counter-Strike to flourish,
Well, first of all, like the notion of like fair representation, I mean, that's like got to be the most loaded term ever, isn't it? Like, what is fair representation, So, I mean, presumably you mean just give it people equal slots or something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, because like, look, I will say this. I think of the major in the same way that Valve, that I assume Valve does, in the sense that, I want a South American team there. I want an American team there. I want European teams there. I want CIS region teams there. I want Asian teams there. And I want that. You know how excited I got when TyLoo started coming to these fucking events, and then TyLoo turned out to be hot garbage, but it was still exciting for me. Reminded me of 1.6, you'd see Fnatic go over to China, you'd have, We Made, Fox, go, all these great storylines with all these teams that didn't just represent, themselves, they represented a country, along with it. There was that loaded into it. If we think about like SK Gaming, they're not just one of the greatest Counter-Strike teams that represent SK Gaming. They represent Brazil. They absolutely do. The Brazilian flags.
I'm somewhat aware of that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
occasionally I get reminded.
Yeah, I thought you might do. So, I mean,
we've got about 1,700 people on the starting roster, apparently.
By
the way, you don't know how far I've been from snapping. Here's the maddest thing, Rich. People don't actually realise how restrained I've become as I've gotten older, and more experienced. Like, you have to understand, if we could go back in time, I mean, God forbid there'd been Twitter properly back when I was young in esports. Because you don't know how many times I've thought about snapping and just doing that video that just starts like this. Coldzera is one of the most exceptional players of all time. He is incredibly intelligent at the game, has mastered all aspects. And if you think about it logistically, he is actually the exception, because none of the other people who are Brazilian who play Counter-Strike are like him. So actually, his excellence highlights how incredibly mediocre all the rest of you. That's how the video would start. That's its starting. Never mind where we go in it from there. And all straight facts, straight fire, truth 24/7. That could be a fucking tagline for some sort of news network.
Why are you even doing that? Why are you even bringing up a concept for a video you've never made? It's like we were going to do a show where maybe we didn't trigger Brazilian fans. So you just had, this is a video I would have made back in the past if possible. Like, come on.
If anyway, I had made the video.
Yeah, exactly. OJ Shields in the house, dude. But anyway, so that's how I think the major should look. And I'm not against artificially
here's an idea,
up regions. Yeah.
Here's what I would rather do. Right. As I said, it's not like they were denied access to the major. If they made it through the major qualifier, they got through. So they already had a route. What I would do instead is, rather than give them stickers and put them in the major, essentially sort of skipping the line, I would just get more money and put it down in the minors. Maybe make the minor so you get 100 grand for first place in the minor. That would still be, like, to me, a waste of 100 grand. But you know what? If you're from the fucking Chinese region or whatever, and 100 grand 2 times a year isn't good money to you, well, then at that point in time, there's no amount of money can make you try harder, put more money into infrastructure. You know, I think that would be a compromise that's more reasonable.
Yeah, perhaps. I guess we'll see. I mean, this is the first time this major that's coming up in Boston. You know, this is going to be the first time we've done it this way. We'll have, like, no doubt, some data about things like the sticker sales and regional viewers. You know, I will say I don't think in CS we cook the books when it comes to, like, you know, who's watching and where, like other games do, where it's like...
I don't know about that. Did you see the stats for the fucking PGL major for China? Come on, son.
This is one of the areas I can definitely speak for E-League for, and I know, you know, I watched the viewer numbers and stuff come in for hours in Atlanta. So yeah, there was no book cooking going on there, but you know, I think we'll get an idea of, you know, and look, I've talked about it before as well, like when we had those leaks come out. Where you know, it was the guy with the slideshow for Counter-Strike launching in China, and one of the images was that there was going to be a league with all these teams. I mean, I don't even know what's happening with that anymore. I assume it's still going ahead, but we're almost in 2018. I haven't heard anything more about it. But you know, I think should that, like, Chinese league with a bit more structure, you know, come into play, you know, look, I think if we crack the Chinese market, great things can only happen for Counter-Strike. It's such a key territory, and that's why, you know, having an Asian team in the minors, the majors, or the official Valve endorsed tournaments is an incredibly good thing long term for the game's future and the game's overall health. So I'm kind of hoping we really can become big in China. You know, I think if we don't.
Here's a funny detail, though, that I've noticed no one ever brings this point up, is that everyone who goes down that model, right, where essentially what you're saying is, instead of, like, just a tournament of the best teams, I'm going to have a World Cup. I'm going to represent all regions and nations, right? Here's the thing. In football, they really don't give a fuck. You literally do only get X amount of teams from certain region, X amount from another region. And famously, as a result, you can have a scenario where, like, England might not qualify for a World Cup, where, yes, some team from South America that aren't good, that they might have beaten. I mean, obviously now they're all good, but, you know, like 15 years ago, some of them weren't that good. Yeah, that team might qualify. And therefore, in the Counter-Strike sense, you'd complain, right? But first of all, I'd notice every other esports game that goes that model never actually does it the same arbitrary way that football does. Like, for example, in League of Legends and Dota, we pretend as though China and Korea are regions. Well, by the definitions of how you do a World Cup, they're not. They're just countries. But we give, in Dota, you give China a certain qualifier. You give Korea a qualifier in League of Legends. Well, by the logic, if people really want a World Cup, let's give them one team each, shall we? Now, they wouldn't do that because guess what, Rich? It would tank the fucking viewership. So everyone, no matter how much they pretend they're idealists, unfortunately in esports, you have to always reverse engineer your position from something that could actually work business-wise, you know? Like, if it can't work business-wise, there's no point doing the best, most idealized version ever if it just dies on its arse, doesn't it? So I will give it to Valve in as much as they have to mind their own numbers, and if they really think it can grow, fair play. I will say this, at least they're expanding it. I'd be much more annoyed if they were given like designated slots just straight out the minor into the normal major. And, the 16 teams now always had to have a Chinese team, because that would suck a lot more. And by the way, as a side point, that would also, I think, actually ruin the concept of the major, because now the major would actually be worse than like a DreamHack Malmo or something. It would have worse teams. So you'd actually get in that stupid scenario where, sure, people would still want to win the major, but the like hardcore community would be like, but it's not the hardest to win. It's already on that brink with some of the weird rules anyway, isn't it?
Next up, Peacemaker and TyLoo. Since we're talking about the major here, I was going to do a video on this, but I'm waiting on Peacemaker's video before I do my video, because I think it's fair. Because I've called Peacemaker out a few times. I've called Lewis out a few times.
He's been called his pants down a few times.
He sure has. That is the timestamp, unfortunately. No, unfortunately. Well, glad you caught the show live, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, and I've been critical about him because obviously as a coach, I've seen him associated with a lot of failure. Effectively, and it's in so much as a coach can be blamed for a team's success and or failure, and yet he's always seemed to get himself into another job quite quickly. Now, what people might forget about all of this is he went to coach TyLoo, the Chinese team that we were just talking about, pretty much when his stock was an all-time low. He'd really been struggling to stay in teams as a coach, for months. And TyLoo, from my understanding, offered him a pretty lucrative contract to go and coach their CS team. So he went and he did that. And now he's suddenly joining Heroic again, which is very strange to me. And he's kind of bailed on them just before the major. Now, unfortunately, due to a situation that has arisen with BTNet's visa, Peacemaker was meant to be playing for them, and now he's intimating he doesn't want to play. And as a result of that, TyLoo might have to forfeit their slot in the major entirely. So my gut reaction when I saw this story, Duncan, was like, what a fucking shitty thing to do, because we know there's teams at the major that are using coaches as stand-in. Team Liquid are doing it. Sure. Potentially Astralis are going to have to do it if Device isn't healthy. We certainly hope he is. I couldn't imagine a coach turning around and saying, "I'm a coach, not a player. Fuck you guys." But this is a different situation because he no longer works for TyLoo.
Yes.
So instead of kind of like doing what I would consider to be the honorable thing, unless there's something I'm missing, which is why I want to see his video, this just looks like a move that only a monumental piece of shit would make. So,
yeah. Well, the first problem I have is as you referenced, we can't really know his circumstances. Like, for example, what if he left because there was some outrageous, fucking conflict between him and someone in the org, and maybe they were very unfair to him. Who knows? Like in that scenario, I might not feel obliged to help you out if maybe you fucked me over and told me, "A good riddance, get out. You're never going to work for anything along those lines." I could see why you might hold a grudge. I also, without knowing any of the details, I suspect another factor that might play a role is, first of all, he knows that if he's a stand-in for a team that already was probably going to come last place, he's not going to do well. So it's not like they actually have a chance. Then you have to add in, remember, he is still mocked for that time he had to stand in Pro League or whatever, and he did the stupid jump with a Mach 10 or whatever it was and just fucked around him. So I'm sure he's not looking forward to having that for at least 3 games versus the best teams in the world, them just straight fucking putting beats on him. He's not really looking forward to that, is he? He's not looking forward to them putting pressure on him in the streets.
No, definitely not.
And then also, I will say this about Peacemaker, though. He's the guy where, okay, how there's men where there's a saying that they're not that good actually with women, but they're amazing with the mother-in-law, and so as a result, the reason why that's actually a positive, because then, if you've got the mother-in-law on your side, then she's going to support you and be like, oh, give him another chance. Oh, he's a good guy. Look at his job and that, right? He must be the guy where he must just be fucking dynamite in that pitch room for the first 20 minutes. He must have the fully authenticated version of Microsoft publisher or whatever, PowerPoint. He must literally have like graphics coming up, Peacemaker Productions presents a new coach, and then he must be like, Tom Cruise in fucking Magnolia, where he comes out to that massive thing. Yeah. He must be doing that shit, just getting inside their minds, giving them a life-changing once in a lifetime experience, and then they're like, we got to have this guy, we must have this guy. Plus, look at that snake oil he drank at the end. That man could walk. It's like, and he definitely wasn't his brother. I don't know why he was giving him a lift home afterwards. I don't know what he's doing in these meetings, but straight fire, because he's selling all these guys, and he's selling all the head people, and then they're obviously going to their teams. Good news, we got you that coach you want for Christmas. Oh, fucking hell, you got me Zeus. Oh shit, was it Zeus you wanted? Oh, I've got the Peacemaker. That was on offer.
Hang on. I might be able to give us some footage of a Peacemaker pitch. Hang on. I didn't prepare this, Duncan, but your incredible, mate, your straight fire improvised comedy is helped. Hang on, I gotta find it. Let me just. Is this the clip? Yeah, this is it. So here we go. Right. So this is. We'll have to 3, 2, 1 this. So I'm putting it in the group chat. All right. So get it ready. Get it synced up to 0 seconds. Right. This is the kind of thing that Peacemaker makes possible, right? This is how he gets his job. So, Sam, when you're ready.
That subtitle's done me already.
Right?
I'm so tan.
Right. 3, 2, 1, go.
This woman has come with a problem. One of her hands is shorter than the other.
How is that the problem?
Look at that! This is incredible. Her left hand is growing. This woman has come.
There you go. Absolute undeniable miracles there. Absolute undeniable miracles.
She doesn't watch your wrist to it. The hand's sliding.
What's that taking place? Is that like some fucking country, like the invention of lie in the first half of that movie or something? What is that?
I don't know.
I just willing it along. Come here.
I always keep that clip on standby. Just you never know when it's going to come in. Straight fire, of course. But anyway, you're probably onto something. I mean, like Peacemaker's always talked a good game, and he's even sort of partially intimated to me and convinced me that, you don't know the full story. There's always stuff going on, Like, my understanding is he's somebody that wants complete autonomy over these teams, and that when you ask for that, you obviously don't ever get it, do you? You know what I mean? So, but yeah, like, what do you think of what he's doing effectively to TyLoo here? It seems to me, and again, this is reading between the lines and without getting his version. Sorry, I'm doing the hand. Like,
yes. It's a miracle.
I've got magical powers.
I've just thought of something, Rich. We missed the detail. Here's the worst part. I've actually just missed a detail that, unfortunately, when I put it in the context of everything else we've said, probably does lean it more towards the maybe he's a piece of shit, which is, unless I'm mistaken, wasn't the order of his tweets like this? What? Coach is standing in, don't even get a sticker. Next day, I don't even think I'm going to play this major. What the fuck?
Yeah, that's
like if that guy was straightening his hand and he goes, wait, man, I don't get paid for it. Fuck that. I'm out. I'm taking my hand straightening fucking magic elsewhere. Hey, Nico, you ever seen this?
New coach for Faze.
No, there was a Nico in Heroic, remember?
Oh yeah, sorry, my bad. But look, yeah, you're right actually, and this is an interesting point as well, which is we should have. I never want to see you do that again, Duncan. That's put some mind that
context, yeah.
Yeah, I want that out.
That's fucking kill me.
Yeah, but hang on, fuck yeah. The sticker issue, like the stand-ins not getting stickers.
Yes.
Now that's something that I think seems crazy to me. I think if you play in them,
you just wonder where the rationale comes for some of the Valve moves. Like, listen, there's a lot of Valve moves where they make a move I disagree with. I just don't understand what the premise even is. You're playing in the major. You are a player. The stupidest is you're making me be a player, even though I'm not, and you're telling me this is the only player I can use for this team, and then going, Can't have a sticker though. Why not? Not a player, is he? Is this 1984? Am I just like, which is it?
But here's what's mad about it.
Fine, then it is fine. Fucking hell.
Here's what's mad about it though, Dunk, right? So think about some of the player pick'ems that we've had in the past, right? I know it's highly unlikely, but what if one of the pick'ems that they have, like most kills or highest headshot percentage, is one of these coaches? Well, I physically can't pick it because there's not a sticker in the game to pick it. It just seems like it's so contradictory to the system they put in place for fan interaction that I would absolutely say it should be a rule beyond Boston.
Yeah.
Just because, look, Valve like to improve and change things on the fly. So one of my recommendations would certainly be that if you play in the major, you've got to have a sticker that reflects the fact you played in the major. Is it ideal that it could be a coach or some other stand-in or a mercenary or someone not associated with the team, someone you might never see in a playing position again? Well, no, but the only reason that would ever happen is because of the rules that you put in place. So you kind of like I would say having your cake and eat it, but it doesn't seem to benefit anybody.
No, that's the weirdest part. It doesn't benefit Valve. That's the part I don't get. Yeah. What I don't understand as well about the Peacemaker scenario is, how does it not bother Valve again that he's not with the org anymore? And also that in this scenario, I think this one's even worse than the illness thing, because in theory, someone could fake an illness and not be quite as ill as they say. Right? He's literally had his visa denied. In that scenario, you would think surely it's not unreasonable to say, as an exception, you can use any Chinese region player who wasn't at the minor.
Yeah.
Is that unfair, is it? Come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame. With it being BTnet as well, like obviously the better player on TyLoo. But again, I just don't understand what Peacemaker is doing here. First of all, I'm not even sure why any of this is public, and why he's making it public specifically blows my mind. Like, yeah, for me, I don't know why this is public, and I think it would be a travesty if somebody that took money from TyLoo and had worked for TyLoo and took a contract offer from TyLoo at a point where, it didn't look like he was going to get another job again, another coaching job. A lot of people were sort of laughing and making derisory comments about his contribution as a coach. TyLoo changed that, brought him in. And now he's like, well, I hold your major future in the palm of my hand. And for some reason, I'm deciding to wield it in an irresponsible way, Like, I don't think people are going to be like mad critical of Peacemaker if he plays shit. No one's expecting.
There's a lot of cunts in the world.
You're not wrong, but I don't. Look, at the end of the day, I think you got to go and give it the old college try. I think that's the only honourable thing to do.
Oh,
like I would.
Yeah, I mean, here's another thing that you should probably do, just in light of this problem now being started. First of all, when you sign a contract with a team, it should probably have a clause that says if for some reason you have to stand in the major, you must do that. Secondly, I'd do the same for Valve. I'd say to even play in the minor, you must sign a contract, including your coach, that if needs be, he will play in the. Do something that actually sort of on paper enforces it in some way. You won't ever have to go to court, but you'd at least be able to sort of shame the guy into it, at least, right?
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. I don't understand what Peacemaker's going to put in his video, because I can't think of an argument that would persuade me that this is the right thing to do. I mean, I'm super intrigued to see what he's going to say, because it's like you said, the appearances. What, we don't get a sticker? What? I've got to play it. Fuck this, I'm out. Peace. Like, that's why he's called Peacemaker. Peace.
Also, that is the most ridiculous. Why does life have to be like that? Where like the guy's name's Peacemaker, everywhere he goes, it's constant drama. Like, here's the thing, because he doesn't work for good teams nowadays, I feel like there's like a reality series I'm not watching and people are talking about it. I've seen the bloody thing about Peacemaker. I haven't seen the Kardashians. I haven't been watching it. No, bloody Peacemaker's out. Oh, you won't even believe what he's done this time. Fucking hell. All right, what's going on? He's left another team, hasn't he? All right, sound.
Yeah, just another Wednesday then.
But you know what? He's back in the lab with a fucking pen and a pad trying to get that damn label off of as a shit coach. There we go. What if he accidentally is not looking and he goes to father? Fucking hell, it's growing.
So Peacemaker is out. It looks like he's not going to play, and with it could be TyLoo. Again, I have no insight into what's going to happen there. That's being dealt with at the moment, but I don't really approve of Peacemaker's decision. Should it mean that TyLoo has to be replaced at the last minute? I think it would be a travesty. TyLoo inarguably have earned their slot there, so no doubt there'll be some more drama that comes as a result of that one. Now, we've got a few other bits and pieces, but I think before we get into that, why don't we talk about a certain event in Mexico? And a great event.
You hear that saying?
No. And with that in mind, we're going to talk about the ECS Season 4 finals ran by Face It. And right off the bat, I want to say what an awesome event it was, and how I think Face It are sort of now finally finding their identity in a way, their niche. You know, they've done a couple of events now where, you know, they're not necessarily trying to, you know, outside of what they do at Wembley, but they're not necessarily trying to replicate like the ESL experience. Their commentary is obviously very different. You know, James and DDK have a very different style to any other commentary team, I would say, across esports, honestly. You've got the way they do the analysis segments, which are very relaxed. It's not necessarily about having, you know, all sorts of replays and overlays flying at you like you would get in a more traditional sports broadcast. It's more kind of like just relaxed on a couch, you know, talking about, you know, thoughts going back and forth about, you know, should this happen? What should happen here? Been utilizing some ex-pros for that. On top of that as well, I think to successfully pull off the first big CSGO event in Mexico is a hell of a feather in your cap. To do it at a resort where, you know, when I used to work for Heaven Media, and we ran a few CS events, the Mad Cats events that we did in like Vienna, you know, we had a similar modus operandi to this, which was we looked at like resorts that were sort of hermetically sealed in great cities around the world. And what you could do is, as a player, as soon as you're out in the tournament, you could put on a fucking robe and swan around drinking a cocktail, watch the games if you wanted. But if not, you could just ball out of control. You know, you didn't need to go off site to get all the cool shit. And I think that kind of event is going to be super appealing to players and obviously talent as well. You know, I saw Jason the other day for something we were taping at E-League, and he said he spent 5 days fucking smashed, like out of his mind, like drinking cocktails and stuff.
Who's smashed? She sounds like a lovely young lady.
But yeah, so, you know, I thought it was an amazing event. It delivered an amazing final, which we'll get to in a moment. But what were your thoughts? Obviously, I know you weren't there, but I also know you did watch the event because I was watching your Twitter feed. So
sure. The problem with this event is, and this is something I've always said about these ECS, because they've had the exact same format for every single one. Like, they got so lucky in that third season, because if you remember, 4 teams from each region qualify, and last time they pretty much got the best 4 teams. They had the Astralis, Faze, G2, you know, they had the best teams there. Then they had all the good NA teams. First and foremost, they didn't get lucky this time. It evened out. And so, unfortunately, the field they got was much worse than you would have anticipated. Like, you add in the fact that Astralis have the standing situation, and they literally had basically Faze of the elite teams. That's it. Then of the teams sort of below them, they had Cloud9, fair play. Then it's really starting to get diminishing returns. You know, you've got like a few rising teams, Fnatic, Mouse, Optic, maybe. Team Liquid, obviously, are in their own problem. They're in a bit of a slump. Luminosity are kind of crap. So, unfortunately, the field wasn't very good. Now, obviously, I always make this consideration. You can't blame the tournament organizer for the field.
Oh, like, no chance.
They can't be. It's the same as if you have amazing teams and you have the shit games. It's not your fault they played badly. But, unfortunately, that will ultimately always sort of define the way people remember your event. So, I have to say, in terms of games, yeah, the final delivered and the final sort of rescued it a bit, but the field already was a bit whack. And then the way the actual games played out wasn't exactly the most thrilling. Like, unfortunately, even though they will have all tried, you could almost get that sense that it was the last event of the year and it wasn't the biggest event of the year. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing where it's like when there's an hour left at school before you're out for the year. No one's really trying that hardest in that last hour. Yeah, you might do a little bit, you know, but you are sort of looking at that clock. Well, fucking hell, all right, well, and then you're off out the door, aren't you?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, I thought there was some pretty good games here. It suffered again a little bit from sort of the whole best of one-itis. Like this, when
I'm not a fan of that in general, you know. Yeah. Also, you got to throw in as well that like, here's the thing. On one level, it's genius that ECS keeps doing these events, because what they're doing is they have 3-day events and they made the format about as streamlined as you can make it. So I've no doubt, compared to what ESL's shelling out for a pro league, they're probably spending a fucking third of what ESL spends to actually put on the finals itself, you know. But that's starting to show in the tournaments, quite frankly, because we're getting all these other mega tournaments now. We're getting the DreamHack Malmos / Masters events. We're getting the majors. These are all 5, 6, 7 day events now. So ECS, it's maybe more of a throwback, but it's hard to compete with those events if you don't have the teams and the format and the same sort of pomp and the massive spectacle, right? Because it's still cool, but I don't know. It feels like something's lacking when you're used to those events, you know?
Yeah. Oh, so we'll talk about some of the teams that were there, just their overall performance. I mean, Liquid, Team Liquid seems to be a name that we keep bringing up on the show, and I understand why, you know, because obviously they were a team that was expected, according to all of the experts, to sort of do better than what they did. And obviously, what I will say is, for our wager, you've definitely got the option to tap out, I suppose, because you couldn't have anticipated that Stanislaw wouldn't be in the team by this point and Steel would be in. But here's the key distinction about this Team Liquid here in Cancun. They had Steel playing for them, and they were very lackluster. They finished in last place in the group. They didn't win a single match while they were there. And they lost to Cloud9, regional rivals, 2-0 in a series that certainly had a very close first map, but Inferno a little bit more one-sided towards Cloud9. And not particularly great performance overall by Steel, not a great performance overall by Team Liquid. So
pretty much no one played well.
Yeah, so I mean, here's the thing. I mean, JDM was probably the standout, certainly from what I remember in the series with Cloud9. But you know, let's talk a little bit about this. Is this just a matter of Liquid, kind of like you say, wanting to get the year done, reset? You know, what's the point in trying too hard to rebuild the team, to readjust? Because obviously they got to go to the major still with another stand-in. I've certainly heard rumors that they've actually been playing a lot with Zeus in preparation for the major, and this could certainly have made a difference here in Cancun. You know, I don't know the wisdom of that necessarily. I would probably rather throw the Hail Mary at the major and try and get my roster that I'm going to have moving forward on lockdown, and maybe come to a tournament like this in ECS where there's like 8 fucking teams and you're supposedly one of the better ones there, and really give it a good go, you know? That's certainly the word on the street, that they're playing a lot with Zeus, and Steel's kind of just been on the sidelines, unfortunately, because they are looking ahead to after the major. So what do you make of Team Liquid and where they are right now? Is there any way they can get back to that team that you waxed lyrical about when you made your video saying they had this unlimited potential?
Yeah, well, there's like 2 factors. One plays into what you just said, which is that they've had, I think even worse than the scenario of having to use a stand-in, is that it's been in and out. So what they've basically done is they've had 3 events. They played Auckland with Steel, then they had to bring in Zeus for EPL. Then they had ECS. They had Steel back again, but now they have the major with Zeus. So you haven't really had a set lineup. I doubt you could really feel like the project's underway with Steel. Now these results that's just who we are, you know. I bet they themselves have no clue what their identity is. Then you've got to add into the fact that Steel's stats for the 2 events he's played with them have been pretty fucking bad, which in itself doesn't make me think Steel's shit. It actually makes me start to wonder, why is it that we've had now 2 players play that spot, Stanislaw and Steel, and for whatever reason, when they've been playing in that role, not as in-game leader, they've both been really bad. Like, they're both actually decent to good players when I've seen them elsewhere playing either as an in-game leader or as just a good player. You know, like, that almost makes me wonder in the system that they run if, I mean, it's been the storyline for a while in Team Liquid now. They never really get more out of their players than you expect. Like, yeah, Elysian twists go off and they're pretty good and they pretty much carry a lot, but the rest of them are all flawed in some different way. You know, that's why when they rose up, the part that made me so confident was that they didn't do it. They were in no sense were they like a Faze who was just everyone bashing everyone's head, or even Mousesports. They really were like, we're doing it with tactics and actual, we've got a real game plan here. And here's the key thing. People know their roles. So, for example, it doesn't matter if Nitro finishes the event minus 30. You look in the server, he's doing his job and he's enabling other people. You're getting the bomb onto the spot. And, you know, all these factors that are really good. So I do feel like for Liquid, they've just been stuck in some sort of mad purgatory of who is the 5th player and have we even started with the process?
Yeah, you know, and it is frustrating. I can't really imagine sort of being a Team Liquid fan, because I'll tell you, some of the problems in the in the team have actually fixed themselves. JDM's had a pretty good run of form lately, last few events. We always talk about basically he's never going to be a good rifler, never going to be an above average pistol player. And basically, if he doesn't get going with the AWP, or you're ever on the back foot and you can't put that weapon in his hands, you are carrying dead weight in the team. That's something Josh has never been able to iron out of his game. But the good news is he has hit a run of form where when he gets the weapon, he's been really effective with it. So that's good news, right? I mean, that should be a huge plus point for Liquid. Next up, and this is perhaps the most important one of all, Nitro, who, we've talked about in the past. He's having his one good tournament again, kind of existing in that skadoodle twilight. He's been so effective lately, winning crucial rounds, clutching, not even about big numbers, but he's finally looked like a player that belongs in a team of this caliber. And that isn't just for this tournament here in Mexico. This is actually for about, 3 months now. Nitro's been in this real good run of form. And obviously, you've got Elige, who's Elige, and Twists, who is, again, one of the best finds in NA Counter-Strike, certainly since Stewie 2K. So, for me, this team should definitely be better than what it is. I mean, when I made that wager with you, let's be real, Stanislaw was playing really bad at the time, yes. But we were all supremely confident that just with the core four, regardless of what Stan did, that this would be a close wager, that, Liquid, and who would be the better team, the more successful team, Liquid or Cloud9. I was like, maybe I watched the first few events after we made it, and I was like, fucking hell, Liquid might be onto something here. But it's not even close at the moment. I mean, Liquid, I don't even know where they are as a team right now. So very frustrating. I mean, I've also heard rumors. I don't mind saying this on the show. You know me, these are rumors. So before anyone clips this segment, it goes, Richard Lewis just brought the scoop on by the numbers. I have heard that there's discussions among a lot of NA team owners right now about the validity of keeping on CS teams. And this has been sort of prompted by, CLG dropping the team on the basis that there's not, it's not profitable given where the salaries are right now. And there's a few orgs that are thinking about cutting their CS rosters, apparently. No, I've heard this from a few sources. I have no idea if it's true or not, and indeed, no idea whether Team Liquid are one of them. But it does make you think, doesn't it? So I don't know. Just some final thoughts about Liquid and where they might go from here. I mean, is this a doomed lineup? I find it hard to believe. I know the guys, they signed particularly long contracts. They were the 2-year contracts, I believe, over at Team Liquid.
Well, first of all, if you have Elige and Twists and their age, that's like having Simple and Electronic. Obviously, no matter what happens to this lineup, you want to keep those two guys. You want to make them, and in fact, you want to even be selling them constantly behind the scenes on the idea that, listen, if this one doesn't work out, stick around. We'll build around you. You'll always be prime position. We'll get you the players you need. So I do feel, though, as though this core, unless something crazy happens with Steel in the first couple of events in next year, I think the core probably has run its course. It's maybe time to pick. Do we let JDM go? Do we get someone else in that sense? It's maybe time to do that. I think also from watching this lineup play, the funny thing is, even at the events that they're losing now, it's not like they get shit stomped. They still get decent amounts of rounds. They still look in the games. So I have to say, one thing about Liquid that has always worried me is there are people who are born winners, and somehow they'll always find a way to win and find a way to battle back. You can't mentally break them. Obviously, some of the SK players would typify that. Although I have to say, just as a very small side note, I'd go ahead and bet all 5 SK players aren't like that. From my experience, it tends to sort of stem out of 1 or 2 key players, and then what happens is your other players get the confidence from them, and it sort of rolls on. It's the same reason why if you ever look in those like Michael Jordan Bulls teams, people who are like fucking bench players are like styling on people like, and then when they go to other teams, they do nothing, and they're not in half the play. So in that sense, I feel like Liquid, this core group, has always been the other way around. Like, actually, it didn't matter how well they were playing, how good a star player was. They always had that sort of like skittishness about them, where if they're ever uncomfortable, you just know they're going to find a way to lose the game. So I have to say, I think this whole roster thing definitely hasn't contributed to the mental state of the team. Like I think some of them have had that stupid thing in their head where, yeah, they've said to us, oh, we're going to try this event, but in the back of their head, it's like, no, this isn't the real fucking lineup, or oh, we haven't had a chance to properly practice, or whatever the other excuses people make for themselves, which is sucks, obviously, because the obvious example you want to give them is, look at this Astralis team. They're playing with different standings all the time. They're actually fucking decent. Like, people forget, at the IM Oakland one where they had to use Zolik for like the one game, they still did half decent in that game as well. They almost got out of the group overall. Come on. Like, it's no excuse. I get it that it sucks not to have your full lineup, but you're still going to try your hardest. You're still going to lock in and go, fuck it, this is a one-off tournament, let's do it. So there is a bit about that does make you worry a bit for Team Liquid, because it's not like they haven't got good players, but if you're going to mentally break like that, I mean, I don't know the solution to that. It's always the toughest one to crack, isn't it?
And there's a few people in the chat saying if they should drop JDM and get Ricky. Guys, come on. Fuck that noise. That's I'm not even certain that's an upgrade. I think that's like you're just taking a inconsistent AWPer and replacing him with another inconsistent AWPer from a different region, So I don't really see that being a good idea. Let's talk about Cloud9 then. Now, Cloud9, they lost a best-of-1 to the Astralis team with a stand-in, which obviously is always problematic, to use your favorite word. But then they ran up against FaZe. Now, one of the things I will say is when we talk about matchups in Counter-Strike and how one team will always have this sort of, the favor, the advantage in a stylistic matchup. Well, FaZe Cloud9, that is one of those matchups.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, like, Cloud9 have run up against FaZe now in a few tournaments, and these matches are never really close because...
I think someone ran the stats that when they'd played with these lineups, that like in rounds, FaZe had won like 90 and Cloud9 had won like 40-something. That's how bad the mismatch is.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you can't really put your finger on it. I think to just give a sort of simplistic overview, I think they do play very similar styles. Like FaZe, they're always looking to force things by getting picks, and I think Cloud9 are kind of doing the same thing on their aggressive T sides. But if you're just happening to run up against players who are as good or better than you, that style of play is always going to be incredibly hard, And I think Cloud9 are a very good team. I've said this. I think this is probably the best team we've seen in NA for a very long time. And unfortunately, they keep running up against FaZe at these fucking tournaments. Now, it's inexcusable. The reason they ran up against FaZe here, of course, is that they lost to an Astralis with a stand-in, which if you want to be serious contenders, you're going to have to overcome those kind of hurdles. But I will point out a few things that are interesting. So we're digging deep into the bag of recurring material on By the Numbers. Skadoodle been in decent form lately, not amazing, but certainly has looked like doing the job I would expect an AWPer in this team to do. Haven't been able to criticize him for a while. Had some very decent stats at some tournaments he's attended. In this series against FaZe, he achieved 19 kills in 51 rounds of Counter-Strike, which it's just not good enough. It just isn't good enough. Carrigan out-fragged him. We know what problems he's had lately. And it's the same old story. It's like he's missing again in a big series when you need him to step up. But that being said, Stewie, who we've highlighted as kind of like not being as explosive as he used to, still really struggling to hit that godlike form he had. As Rush has come into form, Stewie's kind of dropped off a little bit. Tarek's been a really good fragging in-game leader, but Stewie's kind of not been quite there. Stewie only got 23 in 51 rounds.
And he had one game that was like, wasn't he like 6 kills or something? Somewhat outrageously bad.
I think that was the Mirage one. So, Cloud9 for me, they got a roster that should fucking work. I keep saying this, but people have got to show up to these fucking games, man. Like, you can't. I don't know. I mean, again, there's nothing really to analyze, is there? Because I know what we're going to say. We know Skadoodle is obviously immortal at this point. There's no point in even bringing that up, is there? He's not going anywhere.
No, the sad thing is that just becomes one of those like Freiburg and Nip scenarios. Exactly, first you bring it up because it's just quality analysis. Then you keep mentioning it because you get so sick of the morons who wait for them to have half a good game and then go, oh, look at him, he's bloody doing amazing, what are you talking about? And then you think, no, not happening. And eventually you almost get tired of it. It's like when I made my recent video on Happy. I didn't enjoy making that video. I wasn't laughing while I was making it. It's fucking tragic that I have to make a video about what the guy has sucked for 2 years when he was one of the best players in the entire world. That's not actually fun. It's not even funny anymore. It's not banter. It's just depressing, isn't it? You just actually want to be like, fucking hell, someone call it quits, will they? Like someone put both of us out of our misery at this point in time. So the Skadoodle one is beyond played out. I've always said this. This has always been the way I come down on that when people are so adamant that there's no problem. I just go, cool. I hope Freiburg plays for Nip for 10 more fucking years. I hope Skadoodles and Cloud9 forever. And I hope you suffer the consequences of that. And at the very end, you never realise what the problem was. And it never works out quite for you. So that one's sailed. It's obvious he's not a good player. He doesn't fit in the team anymore. If he's going to be rehabilitated, it's not going to be in Cloud9, that's for sure. Maybe he would be if he went to another team. Don't know. I'm not a miracle worker. Maybe if you put him with Sean Gares or someone he's worked with, maybe that would work. Again, can't really know. No real control group for that. The problem with the Cloud9 example, though, in this particular matchup, is that this is like an example of a matchup where I actually think it's more than even just like style, form that's playing it. It is a psychological component. What's funny is Cloud9 is getting beaten by FaZe the same way FaZe gets beaten by SK. Now, I realize to people who are delusional, SK beats FaZe because they've got better players than FaZe and they're better on every single map than FaZe and they're just a better team than FaZe, right? That's not the way Counter-Strike works. No one has all the stats maxed out like that. And if they did, the other team would never be doing the things they're doing. What happens is SK can beat FaZe on practically any map. I mean, not Inferno, but practically any other map, in part because their matchup makes all the map strength that FaZe has just disappear. They play differently. They're psychologically affected. Likewise, when Cloud9 plays against FaZe, it doesn't matter what map they play. Like, for example, the reason why they picked Mirage here, a fantastic map for FaZe, is because last time they tried picking Train, which is a really good Cloud9 map and not a very good FaZe map. And FaZe just fucking smashed them completely on it anyway, as if it was their good map. And then FaZe went on and played other teams, NIP, North or whatever. It wasn't even looking that good on that map. It was looking like, oh no, it wasn't that map. It was just Cloud9 playing FaZe. So yeah, unfortunately, this is just one of those hard mismatches where, frankly, the only way out of these sorts of series to me is you've either got to have an amazing coach who does work with you, or you've got to have an in-game leader who comes up with some sort of adaptation. And unfortunately, in the case of Cloud9, as far as I can tell, they have neither, because the guy Valens is just seems to me like an analyst, and then Tarek is their in-game leader. And like, this is the downside of Tarek, unfortunately. He certainly seems like he is being competent as an in-game leader. He certainly runs the team pretty well. Sure. It's all good. Unfortunately, I actually do get the feeling that he's one of those players. This is one of the reasons why I don't like these sorts of players when they're in-game leaders. It's where they're just sort of like, it just didn't work out for us. You know, we didn't hit our shots. They hit their shots. Like, that's not analysis from an in-game leader, mate. Like, if you really believe that, you are utterly fucked, because you have to recognize when so much didn't work and you got to completely scrap it and start all over again, you know.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me. You know, I don't know necessarily how you fix Cloud9. I'm just worried this is the ceiling now. You know, and if it is, then I would say you would have to be very disappointed, because
it's the sad thing, isn't it? We've got Cloud9 and Liquid. They've still got all these good players in it. Yeah. Like, you know, you're in that scenario where it's not easy to just go, we'll cut half the team. Nah, that's the problem. You're looking to cut maybe one player at most from each team. But there's no obvious solution to either team, is there?
Yeah, it's just that I feel this should have been a real golden age for like NA Counter-Strike, you know, moving into. You've got Team Liquid.
It's like I said, to me, what happened was they did exactly what you would have hoped for. Optic was a team that unfortunately could never get an in-game leader, so they were just wasting a load of talent. So you split the talent up and they made Cloud9 better. Yeah. I mean, Team Liquid technically took status loss, so I guess that's sort of like that. And then even fucking NAF went off to Renegades, and they're doing well. Yeah. This should have been the golden age of NA, right? We've condensed the talent down to good teams.
Yeah, exactly. And instead, what we've ended up with is a very lackluster, all over the place Team Liquid and Cloud9 that really seem to have hit the fucking wall and certainly are incapable. You know, let's look at their matchups where they struggle. Bizarrely, they always seem to do better against SK than they do against FaZe. They can't beat Astralis either. All of a sudden, you're running out of these fucking options. These are the names you've got to be competitive against if you want deep runs in tournaments. And unfortunately, where Cloud9, for me, should be easily, solidly a top 5 team in the world, that it's not happening. What is happening is they're running up against the same big teams, as what happens when you get to quarterfinals, semi-finals, and they lose. And
they're in that position, right, which is the worst position to be in. It's what Norfolk was often in their careers, where you are top 5. You know, the ranking says you're 5th or you're 6th or you're 4th. Problem is, you're the top 5 that will never beat the teams above you. So it's actually shit. Like, I'd much rather be the G2 5th place, where, like, yeah, I'm 5th place because I'm very inconsistent. But when I'm on my game, I beat anyone. You know, that's the one you want to be in.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, in terms of fixing them, you know, right now, I'm just going to say it. You know, because there was a guy who tweeted at me, right? Called Tiger Joseph. He follows me. He's a photographer. Okay. Right? He seems a cool dude. And he said his opinion on how to fix Cloud9 is you drop Scar, you bring in Sean Gares, and you put Stewie on the AWP. Now, certainly that is a philosophy that I can understand. Although, you know, we don't know if Stewie would be an amazing AWPer. We know he can use it. We know he's certainly got the potential to be a great hybrid player. But at the highest level, against teams like FaZe, you know, Astralis, SK, a little bit unproven. So, fair enough. For me, and this is where it would certainly perhaps be outrageous, maybe you don't need an in-game leader. I certainly think Tarek is doing a good enough job to warrant holding onto that spot, and you don't need to necessarily bring Sean Gares back. But I will tell you this, Shazam is a better AWPer than Skadoodle right now. But that's it. I mean, that's not even... I
don't think that's controversial.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's controversial. But I imagine it's going to blow a lot of motherfuckers' minds, like, to say it. Oh, no, but Richard, I mean, he's just playing for Misfits and they're playing all the shit teams. And mate, he's got fucking Skadoodle on fucking toast all day, 24/7. Like, Shazam is ready for the bigs again, in my opinion. And, you know, if I was an NA team that was having a struggling, inconsistent AWPer, let's say, which we've highlighted in both of them, and I could get Shazam from Misfits, I would take the gamble.
Shazam out here just waiting for fucking Mr. Big to call. Who's he, Carrie from fucking Sex and the City? Straight fire.
Not bad. Not bad. That's a good fucking reference. Although it makes me fucking sad that you actually watch Sex and the City. So, all right, well, but yeah, we should definitely fucking look at getting Shazam into one of these better teams. I mean, like, you know, because if it carries on the way it's going, I mean, fuck, imagine a world where Misfits overtake Team Liquid. I mean, imagine that. It's not out of the possibility at this stage.
I mean, at this point in time as well, this is one of the things that puzzles me a bit, right? I can understand why, even though I thought they should have given them a shot, people in NA don't give a fuck about FNS and DAPS and players like this. You know, they're not going to go to one of their teams and go, oh, I'll downgrade and go to NRG and play with DAPS. No, they don't care even if he's a half-decent in-game leader. But surely at some point, like, Misfits is an org with decent money and backing and all the rest of it, and they seem like they've committed to Sean Gares. Surely at some point, one of these guys from Team Liquid or Cloud9 goes, why don't I go and play in Misfits with Sean Gares, a team that is actually starting to get half decent?
Yeah, right. It's a matter of time. So there's some thoughts about the NA stuff. We'll take a look now at we can sort of skip ahead. I mean, you know, Optic, they did what, maybe it was a little bit disappointing overall for them. They got smashed by Fnatic, but again, best of one-itis. Can't really read too much into that. Fnatic have kind of been slowly and steadily improving of late, and they had some results here that definitely, if you're a Fnatic fan, you might start to believe that they can come back. And we didn't talk about Fnatic at the last tournament they were at, where they also sort of got into those echelons of, you know, third, fourth, getting to semis again. Here they lost to FaZe, who are, you know, obviously the eventual tournament winners. And, you know, sure, they only had to beat Luminosity in a best of one and Optic, but they obliterated Optic to get into that position. But what have you made of Fnatic of late? You know, they seem to be coming back. I saw you tweeting a lot about, you know, Crims has sort of been getting back into a bit of form. I think what's interesting is what's kind of predicated, or rather spearheaded this Fnatic success is Flusher, Crims, and JW, while still a shadow of their 2015 selves, have certainly improved enough to a point where Fnatic can finally be competitive again. Yeah. Is that an accurate interpretation of what's been going on?
Yeah, I think so, actually. And I think also when you look at this team, it's actually in spirit a lot more like the Fnatic that won that first major in kind of fluke fashion. Because obviously it was like partly that core. I mean, it wasn't Crims, admittedly. It was different players by then. But it was more along the lines of Flusher and JW are going to have to be some of your best players. They can't just be some players in the team. There is no Olaf Meister, Dennis, whatever. So first of all, if ever Crims gets his form back, which he has started to do at the level that they're playing at, he's just such a solid player. It is like a Zipnix in Astralis situation. Once that guy's in line, it puts everyone else in line because that's like the baseline fundamental level. Now you can have people like JW trying to do crazy shit and be a playmaker because there's not as much of sort of a negative when it doesn't work, because you've got that foundation. And then actually, Flusher looks like he really is regaining a lot of his form. Actually, he looks like he's bang back on course. So this whole thing, the whole narrative with Fnatic that I saw in a lot of their interviews was they basically said, you can understand why. If you think about it, right, they had the scenario where they had the super sick Fnatic in 2016 that was like all these amazing playmakers, but obviously eventually, it didn't fizzle out. It just, they didn't win anymore. They used to just come top 4 in finals, and in everyone else's world, that's pretty good. But I understand why for them, they were like, let's take a gamble and try and win again. So if you remember, they did the switch where they went to Godsent because they thought to themselves, let's get that Pronax guy back in again. If he's motivated, it'll work out. Obviously, it was terrible. But then they made the Fnatic lineup back again. It was even worse, actually. They had less of the good results they even had. So I actually get the sense that JW, Crims, Flusher were finally like, right, what we need is a new in-game leader who's actually going to run real tactics, and we have to learn how to play Counter-Strike again. Because our old idea of how to play the game, if you notice, this happens to everyone. Everyone who thinks that they've mastered the game, the second you think that, the game will just turn around and take a shit down your throat. Like, nobody has mastered the game. Nobody can play one style for 3 years. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It'll never work. And so, as far as I can tell, they've kept a little bit of the core that they had as individual players, because obviously that's your style. But as a team, they have gone way more towards like a structured tactical style. As far as I can tell, they really have given this golden guy the keys to the engine. They're like, you run the team.
Yeah, no, but there's definitely no doubt about that. I can give you a little bit of insight, actually. When they came out to E-League, we had that situation where Golden literally got off a fucking plane and pretty much drove across Atlanta traffic and went straight into the game. Like, and he had eyes like piss holes in the snow. He was fucking exhausted, you can imagine, right? I was talking to some of the players out there. Me and JW especially have always been very genial and had a cordial, relationship. And he was. It wasn't just interview bluff and bluster. They're like, yo, Golden is the fucking guy. Like, we completely have deferred everything to him. He is in charge of this team. And they were actually worried, he wasn't going to get there, because they were like, everything that they'd sort of prepped for E-League was around Golden, And I can't even begin to imagine what it's like to come from an academy side to play with some of the most decorated players in terms of major wins in CS history. Well, actually, 2 of the most decorated players. And you've got to tell these guys how to play and what to do. And slowly but surely, it's definitely worked. And you can see Golden's kind of relaxed up a little bit. His performances are starting to be a little bit more consistent in terms of overall board impact. His micromanaging is less. And it's definitely working. I mean, Crims has looked very, very good. JW, as I said, has been the one for me that's had the big jump back to sort of being an effective player. Certainly not vintage JW, but definitely an improvement. We've already talked about Flusher. Flusher, for me, still a fantastic player. So, yeah, I actually like what's been going on with Fnatic, and the fact that it's been low-key and under the radar does make me wonder where they're going to be in 2018, which is supposedly on to the next question. Are these sort of like solid, consistent performances at tournaments? Is this the best they can hope for, or is there realistically a chance that this 5 can find an extra gear and suddenly be getting back to competing up there with those elite level teams in the top 6?
To me, my hope with this team is like, I do think it's a pretty solid team. So my hope is like, just get into the top 10 somehow, start to make gradual inroads, get the odd upset, have some, make some top 8s, maybe the odd top 4 run. And I hope that the logical way you parlay that into bigger success is the Swedish scene right now is such a dumpster fire that surely sooner or later some other really good Swedish player is going to be like, why don't I just join this fucking Fnatic team? I'm sure there's one player I can replace, and then suddenly you got a bit more star power, but you still got the same structure and an actual team and a system. Yeah, I feel like that's actually the way back into being a good team again. Because funnily enough, when I made a video on this topic, probably maybe 2 months ago, I think it was when Fnatic had just done their player roster move, the one where them and Godsent did the swap. I said that if you look historically, the number one quality top Swedish teams have had, it's never actually just having the best players. Yeah, they obviously had so many good players in the scene, it looked like that. It was never actually they had the best tactics. Funnily enough, Sweden was never the one that really went super hard on super duper tactics. It was mainly that they always had fantastic team player, as in the players are all on the same page, you put the right two players in a site, and then the way they play off each other, they have that ridiculous scenario where it looks like you'd think they had the most in-depth comms in the world. I always give this example, but if you ever listen to the comms, they're saying fucking nothing, and you're like, they're just that in sync, So I feel like Fnatic has some of these fundamentals. It's a very promising thing. My flaw, and where I can't get like totally on board and be like, yeah, they're going to go up, and all the way to the top. I do still think they've got a bit of a problem in terms of like raw star power and fragging power. Like, who in this team's going to ever contend for best player in the world? It's probably not really going to happen. I mean, for me, even when Flusher...
It would have to be Flusher.
Yeah. Even when he was at his peak, though, I always thought it was a bit unfair to call him like the best player. Like, even if he had the best stats at the LAN, for example, he like did it within the context that he already had an established superstar on his team. So the way he was the super impactful was like win some great clutches, make a really great play over here. It wasn't like that sort of reliable thing where it's like with Simple and Navi now, where you can just say, take your spots and you'll get the 2 kills every fucking round, and then we'll just figure out the margins over it. He's not that sort of superstar, So unless Lekro's going to come on leaps and bounds next year, I think probably that's where the hard cap is. I think they probably need still a star player of some sort. I mean, I'd love to live in a world where somehow like Forrest joined this team or something. That would be the dream for me, But as of right now, probably have to keep grinding before that's ever a possibility.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. I think they're definitely one of the teams to watch in 2018 for me.
They're an example of a team, right, where it doesn't matter if they actually do win or go deep in the tournament. There are some teams, like when Team Liquid had this breakout where they made the swaps. They're actually just fun to watch even when they lose, because what they're doing makes sense. There's a logic to it. You can see the roles people are playing. It's like when you can understand people's reasons, you can actually accept them losing in some ways.
Yeah, and look, I want to say as well, they were knocked out at the tournament by FaZe, and holy shit, I have never seen anything like what Rain did to Fnatic. Like,
and by the way, let's just throw that in as well. Yeah. Right? Basically, Fnatic got the short end of the stick at this one, right? Yeah. You've won your group. Congrats, you play Faze Clan. By far the best team in this tournament in the semi-finals. How's that fair? In a different world, they'd have been in the final, wouldn't they?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, even if it had been the final, if Rain had played like this, it is insane. He dropped, it was a 2-0 map, and he dropped 61 on Fnatic. Now, Fnatic's highest fragger was 34. So, this was insanity, and we're going to talk about Rain when we get to the finals. What a fucking player that guy is. But yeah, so I kind of felt a little bit sorry. I was thinking maybe Olofmeister might go off against Fnatic. Actually, there was lots of situations where you could just tell, like guys at Crims and Flusher and JW, whenever there was clutch situations involving Olofmeister in that FaZe game, Fnatic knew exactly what Olofmeister was going to do. They fucking wrecked Olofmeister, kept him quiet. You could see they were in his head, but like you can't do nothing about Rain if he's going to step up and do what he did. Absolute insanity. Let's talk about Mousesports. Mousesports went all the way to the final. One of the best finals of 2017. I think if we hadn't been spoiled with those SK Gaming best of fives, this would be the best tournament final of 2017. It was insane how close it was. Just all the games, high drama, overtimes, everything. But before we start talking about the final specifically, talk about Mousesports. We've criticized Mousesports on this podcast, Duncan, you and I, saying that they're not a spectacular team, that they don't inspire us, that they look like they're just going to be an also-ran. What's the team identity? They got Chris J as an in-game leader. I think that critique is all certainly valid. But what I will say is, like, there's players on this team rather that for me have certainly just improved and exceeded my expectations. You know, I think we all knew that Rops was going to be good. He proved that. He hit the ground running. I don't even look to Rops anymore as a guy that's got to find an extra gear. I think he's an established pro now, and I think the days of thinking about him as rookie talent, you just got to put those behind you.
Well, he's like the European Stu 2K, isn't he? He really did just come straight in, and then maybe had like one event that was off, and then now he's up there. Yeah.
You know, but Sonny is the guy that I'm like, when Sonny came in from Penta, I was like, yeah, whatever. That's like just a fucking placeholder player if ever there was one. I've never been blown away by Sonny, and I've got a lot of Finnish friends. They're all telling me Sonny's fucking godlike. You know, guys at Natu have always talked up Sonny. You know, I think Lurpus has talked up Sonny on Twitter. I'm like, I don't see it. Well, all right, I'm wrong. I fucking see it now. And I'm not just saying it off the basis of this one tournament where he was a fucking beast, especially in the pistol rounds where he won several single-handedly by somehow he's figured out the fucking deagle in a way that no one else has. Like that fucking gift from A Beautiful Mind. You know what I mean? Like just fucking trajectories and all that shit. He has been really good for the last few tournaments right now. And equally as well, here's what I will say. Mousesports have got this play style that actually they are kind of like a cut price phase in the way they play.
Yes.
They switch it up. They'll go aggressive some rounds. They'll go super confident. Oscar will take an aggressive pick. And more often than not, he'll get it because Oscar's been playing incredibly well. 92 frags in the final and on the losing team in a best of 3 with overtimes. Chris J, who I had no fucking expectations about as an in-game leader, like literally none. I've known Chris many, many years, going all the way back to Source. He is so fucking laid back, except when he's raging over something that goes wrong. I didn't know what the in-between bit would look like. Like, how does he lead? What are his tactical thoughts? I've always thought of Chris as more of a fucking soldier than a general, you know? Fuck, man. I just got to take my hat off. I thought Mousesports, they've just come on leaps and bounds, and you know, I think actually this is a team that can eclipse the achievements of when it was Nico +4. No doubt.
I think that's almost certain. The problem I have with the Mousesports team is I feel like the consistency isn't there, even in the style of play. Like, they are massively up and down. You can see that not only in the results, but map to map. They can get absolutely their shit pushed in like the final of DreamHack Winter, but then they can look fantastic against FaZe in a best of 3. I mean, that makes no sense that you get bodied by Navi, but then you play FaZe and practically almost beat them. So part of their problem, I think, is whenever I've watched them play on the T side, it looks like they still do play like a high-powered mix. Like they really do just let the stars dictate what happens. So first of all, with Oscar, I definitely agree with giving him a massive amount of autonomy because Oscar's style is outrageous. Like you can see why there was all that hype literally over a year and a half ago where all the players online used to say, if you play him in like FPL, he's unreal. Because the whole thing is, if you ever watched him play just individually, he plays as though he thinks he's the best player in the world. Like as though he's not aware that he's playing versus guys who are supposed to beat him. So when that works, it's unreal to watch. I think he's a fantastic player. Sonny's a bit more interesting because actually the reason why I had a little bit of hype for Sonny when he was in Penta is because when I watched him, it's not even just like he had good aim and he was getting kills. He actually has like really good poise. I mean, I realize this is like a classic quality for Finnish players because they do have that ridiculous like icy cold demeanor, but he does have that. It's not even just an exaggeration. The guy like lurks really well. He has a really smart timing for when to push on to something. It's almost like those players, I've always thought they are almost emotionless, like Zipniks, you know. You get the feeling like if you had a heart rate monitor on these guys, they never go over above like whatever, 80 over, whatever it is, you know. Somehow they just think in their brain, right, this 1v3 I'm in, they don't think, fuck, this is going to be hard, or one of them's Nico as well, shit, what am I going to do? I wonder if should I go really fast? What they do is go, right, 1v3, right, I'll go over here and isolate this guy in a 1v1, then maybe I can throw a smoke there, pull around the back, perhaps one of the, you know, like they start figuring out like a fucking mathematics problem that they're just teasing apart, you know. So those two players for me, yeah, are money in the bank. Obviously a bit streaky in as much as like Oscar is going to have to go ham to be as good, which is what he tends to do, or just have a drop off. The Rops one I'm still not sure of because he's just so young in his career. He's been pretty good. The problem I have with them is they have pretty good firepower, but I'm actually not that sold on the whole leadership aspect because I feel like they're too streaky. Whereas I feel like if the leadership was better, they'd have more of sort of a plan B sort of established aspect where they could get through a consistent. And I don't think they've really got that. So my problem with Mouse is It's the same problem I have with Optic. Like, there's good players there. I actually think they're a better team than Optic, though, for sure. If I look at the two rosters, it's the same approach, but one's much better. Then again, that's make logical sense, because actually Mousesports picked up players on the up, like Sonny, whereas Optic got players on the down, hoping that they do make a resurgence. The problem I have with both teams is I don't think either can ever kick through to that next level, you know. Like, to me, Cloud9 and FaZe are just a better version of what these teams are doing, you know.
Yeah. So the final, I mean, again, this was crazy because, you know, everybody expected FaZe to win this easily. It was going to be another title in the bag. You know, SK Gaming weren't there. So everyone was like looking at FaZe. You know, Astralis have a stand-in. Realistically, all the teams that you would expect to give FaZe a game, beat FaZe, weren't here at this event. So it had to be FaZe's, right? Well, actually, in this final, I mean, Mousesports were at match point. Tournament point.
Yes.
Against them, and FaZe had to come back, win an overtime, a double overtime, I think it was, in the second map. All those pictures of fucking Rops, fucking, you know, miserable on Inferno after it, because, you know, had that gone, and great character to make Mirage another super close map. When they were down, they came back into it. Mousesports realistically could have won this. This was a game on a knife edge, and if it was one or two rounds go differently, Mousesports are holding up the trophy, you know. So what did you make of FaZe kind of struggling to beat Mousesports? Is this another example of a stylistic matchup? Was it just that FaZe weren't on their A game? Should we be giving credit to FaZe because they actually overcome and showed fortitude to come back from tournament point? Or should we be saying, FaZe, you're the fucking super team, you should be eating Mousesports for breakfast?
I mean, FaZe in a way looked a little bit out of sorts. Like, Nico was unusually quiet, because this is a sort of game where he should be loving it. I mean, playing against a team that's not really like a full-on structured team. It's also people who want to frag and take duels. You'd expect him to eat that up all day, you know. But bizarrely, he was very quiet. You had the scenario where I actually think part of this is just Mousesports is massively erratic. Like, for example, in this final here, okay, they, as you say, looked really good on Inferno, which is the map that no one can beat FaZe on, rather. Like, there's the CT side's unreal. They won the T-half on this map against FaZe. So I have to feel like there's something going on there that was pretty interesting. Meanwhile, I'm pretty sure it was Inferno they played like Navi on and got beaten on in the fucking DreamHack final, and not even close. So yeah. I don't feel like there's much rhyme or reason there. So I think, unfortunately, this is an example for me where maybe in FaZe's head, it was that scenario of like, right, if we go out there and we just don't fuck up, we can't lose. And then the other team comes out like, it's FaZe, who gives a fuck, right? I mean, what can we do against them? Just give it our best shot, see how it goes. Next thing you know, you meet in the middle. One of them starting to go, fuck, we're starting to lose this game. And then the other ones go, hey, we've got a chance at this one. And then you get a cracker. Now, I do think it's better for the scene that FaZe at the end pulled it out. Like you say, they've lost way too many close games in these big matches, you know. And obviously, if they lose to Mouse in this final, while to me, no one result is final, it would kill the whole hype of like, well, yeah, they can't beat SK, but they beat everyone else and they're going to win all the other, you know, it would have sort of killed that storyline dead if they lose to fucking Mouse and this fairly weak field at the tournament, added to, remember, them losing the Astralis with a stand-in. So that certainly wasn't good. So clearly, I would say that this tournament, this final, more than anything, exposed some of the flaws in FaZe. Like, you have to be very serious about it, because, you know, when Nip plays out of their mind, but, you know, there's a logic to what Threat's doing. Yeah, you can't blame them that much. And remember, Nip got all the maps that FaZe doesn't like. Then you look at SK beating them. Okay, fair enough. SK is very good on some of FaZe's maps. They've got the stylistic matchup. They're inside Carrigan's head. There's very good reasons as to why you might lose these matches. Why you're getting pushed to the absolute brink by Mousesports is a question that FaZe should be sitting down and asking very serious questions about.
Yeah. I mean, look, here's something I want to address as well, as people in the chat saying, they would have won if it wasn't for Steeko. Steeko played so bad. I mean, you're fucking morons. Anybody, I saw so much criticism of Steeko on fucking Twitter and I think in some Reddit comments. And it's like, if you honestly believe Steeko was a problem in this series, like, just seriously, fuck off. He had that 1v2 where it's not even that he played it particularly wrong. He just didn't get the kill. And Rops was already on the defuse. Now, if Rops had got the kill first, he would have made the defuse. Steeko, actually, sure, he fucked up by not getting the kill, but he did everything else. He body blocked for Rops. He was in the perfect position to body block for Ops. Like he's done everything as a support player should there. And again, for a player who supposedly played bad, right, which is the prescribed wisdom of the average moron, he dropped the same amount of kills as Rops, who everybody was sucking off in this series against Faze. They both had 68 kills. So why is Rops God tier? And oh my God, he's getting one of the best players in the world. But Steeko is shit. I mean, I don't understand it. Sure, it's not all about kills and you've got to judge impact and stuff. What people don't remember is the only reason it went to overtime on Mirage is Steeko got a hold on B where he killed 3 or 4 players. So if you think Steeko's the problem, I suggest 2 things. First of all, go fuck yourself. You're an idiot. And second of all, why don't you go watch Dennis, the player he replaced, play? Why don't you go watch that and tell me if it's not a fucking upgrade? Because when Steeko came into the team for Dennis, everyone was going, that's not an upgrade. It absolutely fucking is. It absolutely fucking is. And if you think it isn't, again, I don't know what game you watch. You know, stick to watching Shroud play PUBG, maybe.
Unlike Dennis, I actually know that Steeko is a player who has absolutely accepted the notion that he is a supportive element player who will play around other people and take on the roles they don't want and allow them to shine. Now, that was half the problem with Dennis. I've said this on past episodes. Half the reason why I went so hard at him, first of all, he came at me. You don't ever fucking come at the king. You know the way it goes. Secondly, I'm not going to say the immortal wireline there. Right. Yeah. Secondly, it's been played out at this point in time. But secondly, the reason why I used to get tilted by Dennis is there's certain players, right, who do badly and they're forced into a role they don't like, but they you know what, they take their lumps and they go, great, well, I'm not that great a player right now, so I'm thankful to be in the team I'm in. I'll do what it takes. I will maybe be the punching bag, so the rest of my team isn't. He wasn't any of that. The worst thing about Dennis was he was like belligerent about the fact that he was shit and couldn't play his role. And are you ready for the kicker, guys? Thought he should play a more starring role in the motherfucking team, and actually himself bought into that logic of like, maybe this Nico guy is being a bit unfair. Shut the fuck up, Hines.
Hines.
I don't know. I was going for a name one night.
Yeah, but you still need to stop short of Fritz. Good job.
I did.
Good job, Duncan. We're getting you there. We're civilizing you slowly on this show. It's quite an achievement.
Well, the secret I've learned is just replace all the potentially offensive stuff with non sequiturs, but that's sort of getting the message across anyway.
Yeah, not bad. You've gamed the system, don't you?
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, like just utter madness. So you know, it was definitely commiserations for Mousesports for not being able to sort of take the win, but 2 finals now. From 2 tournaments attended, going into the major, I was having a conversation because obviously, you know, we're prepping some content and stuff. And, you know, I was like, listen, I think Mousesports might be one of the fucking surprise teams here at this major. Everything seems to be just coming into form for them at the right time. And I think having 2 finals just before the major where you runners up and there's that disappointment there, and you know that shows a hunger. You know, they're not happy with that runners up check. You know, they cut despondent figures after this. I mean, shit, you had a narrow series with 2 overtimes in a 16-14 against Faze, who people are saying is either the best team in the world or the second best team in the world. You pushed them all the way. And you're devastated about that. So I don't know. I think they're going to be, in a good spot going at the major. I think they'll surprise a few people.
Here's the positive if you're a Mouse fan. Like as I said, first of all, they've been way too up and down, and even on maps, you know, I don't see the consistency myself. But I will say this: unlike Cloud9, the Fnatic examples we gave, where like they're good teams, but they're sort of stuck at a certain level. At least Mouse has the puncher's chance. Like, they can have a game where, as I said, it doesn't matter who they play. They could play SK, and if Oscar goes off, they've got a chance.
Yeah,
it can happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. And just a few thoughts about Rain as well. You know, he won the MVP for the event. You've got to give this guy huge plaudits. You know, when FaZe went down the route of deciding they wanted to build this effectively all-star team, and let's be clear, you know, if you know anything about FaZe from Call of Duty and FaZe as an organization, how they operate, they definitely want it to be, you know, big, flash, brash personalities, you know, in a lot of cases, style over substance, but they'll also spend money, you know, very wealthy organization, made a lot of money down the years. And that they certainly have this ethos in other areas that's permeated into the CSGO lineup. And I think there was a lot of potential for Rain, for example, to be on the chopping block. I mean, that's certainly what people thought. You know, when they first got into Counter-Strike and they picked up the old G2 Esports roster, one of the reasons that was attractive to them was that it had popular players. They didn't necessarily care about skill. It was popular players. And then you saw when they acquired, Scream, for example. It's a big name. He's got a big Instagram following, big social media following. Is it Instagram or Snapchat? He's got all the followers in. I can't remember. I'm old. Who cares? I don't know the difference, probably. But, so you could see the philosophy they were going for. And then with this super team, equally, there was always a chance that the super team could have been dead in the water. It might not work. Nothing like it's been tried before. There's no proof of concept. And certainly there was a lot of people going, Rain's not a star player, though, is he? Rain's just the solid. Since this fucking super team got put together, low key, Rain has been. I don't want to be hyperbolic and say the best player, but he's the second best player, maybe. He's been the most consistently brilliant, I think is the way to describe him. He's consistently punched above his weight, got numbers, clutching rounds individually. Whenever they've been in a hole where things aren't working, it's Rain who digs them out of it every fucking time. And I don't know where he's found this run of form for. Right now, going into 2018, Rain's one of the best players in the world. That's it. I mean, that's my take on it.
Yeah, and the key for me, I mean, here's what's funny about this is I don't check my Twitter mentions, so I have no idea if people do this, but I would hypothesize people probably use this to call me out, because I used to always say, especially in the last Faze lineup, the one with TyLoo and Kiyoshima, I always thought that was actually a very small margin of where they had an issue, was that Rain was always called upon to be the second best player in the team. And so I always felt like he's more suited to be sort of like the third best player, and you have a couple of other stars. And then the idea is when he has his big game, it puts you over the top. At that point in time, you got more than enough. I actually feel like that is what he's doing in Faze right now. If you look at how he plays, he is in no sense getting any of the star roles whatsoever. This team is built around fucking Nico and then, depending on the map, Guardian. That is who this team is, right? If you look elsewhere in the squad, and if you're Olafmeister, you're a support player, mate. That is what Olafmeister does. You are support / entry, depending on what the map and the side is. You look elsewhere. Karrigan, well, obviously we know he's just the in-game leader, not a good fragger. What's mad is Rain, depending on the map, sometimes he's the fucking entry player, and his entries are so solid. And it's not only that, he has the entries where it's like, right, we are Faze. Throw 2 smokes, we have map control. Right, waiting on you, Rain. Are you going to go through and kill 2 people? Right, you've done it. Right, we're going to that side. Right, that's almost where you just want to be like, right, you win the round, but you don't get any credit for tactics there. Like, that wasn't tactics, that was just someone making a play and you just followed behind him. The amount of, for example, I've noticed when they play against SK and they lose, he's still doing fucking work. He still puts in they just live and die on his fucking entries, basically. You see it most of all. Check this out next time you watch Faze play a series. If any team has the map pool to be able to pick one of the maps they don't like, Train, Nuke, Cobblestone, whatever it might be, Cash, obviously. These are the maps where they don't get rounds unless Rain fucking entry frags on these maps. Like, he has to get the kills with an AK to open them up and give him a chance for all those star players to go ham. And then, as you say, he's one of the best clutch players in the team. And actually, I feel like that's where this Faze team actually lacks a bit. They've got so many superstar players, but okay, Nico's pretty good in clutches. Karrigan will every now and then win the odd inexplicable one because, his level's so low in terms of fragging, you think, fuck, he's not good. But then every now and then he'll win one. Aside from that, they're pretty thin on the ground, though. Like, Rain's basically the guy they rely upon. He is their Zipnix in that sense. He has to win the clutches because who the fuck else is going to win them? So, yeah, for me, what's impressing me the most about these monster numbers and these MVP-type performances is he's not doing it from a superstar role. He's not given all the resources. He's doing it from the other roles, and therefore, if they lose tournaments, I'm definitely not blaming him. And when they win them, yeah, he's absolutely one of the main reasons why. Because who the fuck else is playing a non-star role in any other team putting numbers like that up? No one.
And listen, what a fucking G he is as well. I'll tell you this, because he was MVP, I think at E-League as well, if I remember rightly. We did a segment on him. I remember that. So he did an interview after his MVP with HLTV. And he said, your form's been going up. Like, what do you think of that? And he just said, I think I can go further, but the quote is this: I've been playing with a lot of players and I've gained experience from them. I think playing with Guardian, Olafmeister, and Nico, whenever I watch them, I try to learn new stuff from them, and they've been in the game a lot longer than me, especially Olaf and Guardian, and I can go up from here. So he's even like giving the credit for his monster performances to playing with these guys. Like this, what a ledge. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not me. I got better because I get to watch Olafmeister, who had a pretty ordinary tournament here,
Here's the thing.
That's a great thing to say.
First of all, it's great PR. And obviously, by the way, another effect that people don't think about in interviews is it obviously does wonders for any of your teammates that hear that. That's going to fucking blow them up. They're going to think, oh, fucking hell, this is great. Meanwhile, just to contrast that with bad PR, remember when Guardian was in Navi and he was going, Simple's not really that good a teammate. And it's like, you're in the fucking team with him right now. What are you doing? Already know he's not a good team. Why are you saying that in public? But I would say this. I even could see an actual, real rationale where he genuinely believes that. Because that's another reason why I felt like when they leaned on Rain a bit more, when it was basically Rain and Nico as the star players of the last lineup, that's where I felt like, I don't know if he's suited to be a superstar player, because part of being a superstar player, right, is you have to almost be delusional. You have to actually think. It's that logic, right? There's a famous quote that Kobe Bryant said, where what happened was when he had that year off where he was super injured, and during this time, right, he was filming a documentary, and so he went with the guy who was making the documentary, and they went and watched a game that I think the Lakers played, whatever team Dwayne Wade was on, maybe the Bulls at the time, and when they were watching this game, it wasn't Dwayne Wade, it was Deron Williams. I think it might have been the Cavaliers, right? And when they watched this game, I think the guy went 0 for his first 9 shots. And what happened was, because he missed his first 9 shots, he just stopped shooting. He just started passing more. And he was thinking, I'm having an off game. And Kobe apparently said to this director, that's actually, that's the problem with him. Because, if I miss the first 9 shots, and I go 0 for 9, then I'm going 0 for 30, or I'm going 20 for 9, or, some mad comment like that. And the whole point of it was, that's not just like he's an idiot. Well, his point was that he knows his job, and he knows when he is relied upon to win the fucking game for his team. And so either he's going to lose the game for his team, or he's going to win the game for his team. Now, there are very few humans in this world who have that fucking mindset. Even the ones that think they do. So I'm sure Stewie 2K thought he had that when he came into Counter-Strike, and he had a few good games. Guess what? That gets fucking tested when you're playing against the best team in the world and they're completely wrecking you. So I don't know necessarily whether he's that sort of player, but I do feel like he is the sort of player where when he has the pack of dogs around him, as it were, and he's got all the other good players and he's got the support, and now there's not the expectation he has to carry. Now, when he's feeling it, he just goes off. So I feel like this is the dream scenario if you have Rain right now.
And another great player from that LGB alumni, right? Which is just
the Norwegian one, yes.
Yeah.
Him and Rubino, funnily enough.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Rubino, by the way, someone's got to give that motherfucker a job. I feel
that's what's so sick, isn't it? Think about the world we live in right now. Rubino, Dennis, all these players, by the way, who were killing it as fucking stand-ins. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, on top of that, I mean, I assume we're not going to talk about much on this episode because there's not much to talk about. Yeah. But fuck me, how good is Glaive? He doesn't have his star player, the focal point of his team. He's just picking up random stand-ins, none of whom are Danish, and he's just cruising past with upset wins over the best teams in the world. Oh, easy does it then. Fucking hell.
Yeah, and I mean, Lucas has come on leaps and bounds. It's like the Lucas Anu coming up to the leader and sort of tactical mind he is now. It's like, it's day and night. I mean, honestly, I'd love to, I don't know, because you had him on a show recently, didn't you? And I would love to get some insight into this, but I don't think it come up on the show. And obviously, you know me, I think in cinematics a lot of the time. I like big stories. Sure. It's kind of like that journalist in me, you like to tell a story while you're writing things up. But there must have been a moment where he was lying in bed when he had that fucking collapsed lung for the 3rd time or something, wondering if he was ever going to get a chance again, wondering if he was ever going to fucking be able to lead a team again, play CS, whatever. And I would love to talk to him about that because we haven't had time really to talk about it privately. But I bet that was a huge fucking turning point. I know what it's like when you have a bad run of health and you start thinking about things and shit, man, I might have to do some stuff differently here. I might not get another chance. What if I get sick again? And, fuck me. He's completely changed who he is in game, out of game. I wonder if the sort of all that illness was a catalyst for that, because like you say, to have Dennis come into your team, right, we're just getting some upset wins here, to have then Rubino, completely different player, different style of player, come into your team, more upset wins, Rubino having a huge fucking series as well, like Glib's so generous, probably just giving him, you're the stand-in, so what do you want to do type thing, like, just amazing. And also on top of that, the idea that Rubino is in free agency, right? So I've always been consistent on Rubino, and I'll just say it again because I want to give a shout out to my boy. When Dignitas were good, Rubino was key. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. I used to have loads of people saying shit. Rubino's not all that good. No, he's the fucking glue that made that team tick. As soon as he went out, they weren't that good. And obviously, North right now, it took them a while to find somebody that I think is a competent replacement, and they did with obviously Valde. Now, Rubino being in free agency just makes no sense to me. This player is one of the best support players and one of the best all-rounders.
Well, especially when every week we're talking about these fucking Optic, Mousesports, these teams that are all European all-star, well, they want to be all-star team, that lack certain qualities to become top teams. What are you waiting for? Get on the fucking horn.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Put it this way. If I was over at Optic right now, right, obviously, we've already said you got to give, last podcast, you got to give Freiburg the pass, right? You got to give him the pass because he's the IGL. But just imagine, let's say, I don't know, Freiburg won the lottery and said, right, I'm retiring, fuck it, I'm a multi-millionaire, peace out, boys, I can't be bothered with the stress anymore. And you had 2 slots on the team, the other one being, of course, HS, who goes out. If you could slot Dennis and Rubino into that Optic team, looks pretty fucking good on paper, doesn't it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Especially because the difference is, unlike some of the other lineups, you're not doing that thing, which I always think is the worst position to be in, where you're going I guess that guy could work. Or who else have we got? He's all right. He used to be good. And at the end of the lineup, you're like, wait a minute, fucking I haven't said anyone's good yet. Is anyone actually in good form in this team? So, I feel like that's where the Optic team is, for example. Like I said, with the Mouse team, they have good players. Their problem is, it's good players. I don't really know that they're a team and they're super up and down. So I'd rather actually build something. Whereas I feel like they're just rolling the dice with good players. So these are players where the whole point is, as they've proven in Astralis, you almost can just go ahead and plug them in and you'll have a decent team off the bat, I would assume.
Yeah. So, right, let's wrap up the show. A few little other bits of news stories. And again, shout out to Faze for having a great event in Mexico. There's a hell of a feather in your cap. So there's just a couple of little things. Again, we did mention Dennis, so I think it's fair that we bring up that Dennis isn't in free agency anymore. He's not languishing on the sidelines. He is in a team. This was announced on the 11th.
You mean the bad Dennis? Okay.
Yeah. Not Dennis that we were just talking about. Dennis
I always remember him, obviously, because he has one Ennis in his name. Yeah, Dennis the Penis, yes.
Yeah, Dennis the Penis. They were in a team called Seed, and now Seed are called Sprout, and Sprout are kind of looking to be that German organization that puts German.
Where are we going with this? Right?
No, we're not going anywhere. I just wanted to mention it. Obviously, the lineup is Crystal, Zane, Innocent, Dennis, and Spiddy. That dream team of Dennis and Spiddy that will be remembered.
At least Nico's not holding them back anymore.
Yeah, no, I know. So no, but I wanted to get your opinion on whether or not this team could sort of go on and maybe do something, because obviously there was a moment in time where that Penta team, it was on the cusp, obviously had that major appearance. So dare I ask, Duncan, dare I ask you?
The best player in that Penta team, far and away, was Sonny. He's gone. So having 5 rejects in one team, unless you're trying to make some sort of live action Counter-Strike related update remake of the Raggy Dolls, no, I do not believe this will be an interesting team, nor is it one I'm interested in with fucking Sad Sack, aka this reference is straight fire, but no one's getting it right now because it's just nonsense, isn't it? But here's the thing, I even like the thematic component of it, right? Which is that, so they were a seed, now they're a sprout. Well, how will we make a sprout grow further? Put compost on it. Get a bunch of shit around it. Put Dennis and Spiddy in there. They are proven shit. They are necessary shit.
You're out of fucking control, man. It's Christmas, dude. It's fucking Christmas, dude. Right. So yeah, okay. Well, I wish them all the best.
Yeah, bad things from except there's people. I hope they have great lives and get a dog and fucking the dog smiles at them one day and they think, oh fucking hell. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, a very foreign Christmas. So while we're talking about teams as well, God Sent now is very strange because obviously Dennis the good Dennis, yes. Dennis the Menace, not Dennis the Penis. Dennis the Menace is out, and Schneider is out as well, and they've brought in Hampus and Brolan. And so the roster is Disco Doppelin, Freddie B, Hampus, Brolan, and Twist. Twist obviously now being the very clear star player. Really strange lineup, and one that I don't have any high hopes for. It's almost as if now, one of the things that I've talked about when I've talked about Refresh before is Refresh were always like, oh, let's fucking, keep in mind, the guy behind Refresh, as I've said, it was proven. He originally wanted to make a player union. And I think when he realized that wasn't necessarily viable, wasn't going to be profitable, wasn't going to give him the scope of control, he came up with the idea for player-owned, wink, wink, organizations. And this almost feels now like it's just a way to have a feeder team for any of the other teams they own, or just to sort of maybe get some buyout should any of these players develop into a talent. I don't know the first fucking thing about Brolan. I don't mind saying that. I've obviously seen Hampus before, never really blew me away. We've talked about Freddie B. He's developing, but still far off. Disco Doppelins fell off a fucking cliff since he had the opportunity to join NIP, where, as far as they were concerned, they felt they missed an opportunity there. They were definitely serious about him potentially coming in full time. And Twist, I don't know what he's doing. It's like Twist doesn't want to be a pro player at this point. Twist, I've never seen anyone self-sabotage their career to the same degree Twist has. So what do you make of all of this?
I mean, this entire fucking team is a nothing burger, to use that phrase. It's just nothing, isn't it? Like, what's the point in it? It's just a waste of everyone's fucking time.
Is that what you think?
I don't think this lineup's going to do anything. Like, listen, maybe some of those players, like, I don't really know Brolan much. Maybe he turns out to be really good. I thought Freddie B wasn't exactly that great when he was in Epsilon. When I saw him, he was just okay as a player. Like, I think Epsilon was absolutely stripped mined of all the talent. They got all the good players out there. Disco Doppelin turned out to be the fool's gold, who looked like the star player and then wasn't really when he got his chances. Freddie B was just average. Rez and Draken were the real finds in that team. Then you look now, like the Hampus guy, I only saw a bit of Red Reserve, but I wasn't really impressed by much of that team in general. I mainly thought they were just playing against other bad teams, like they were playing all at the tier 2 DreamHacks, as it were, Who else is in there? Twist himself. Here's the thing. Not only does he make these terrible career decisions, but as a player, he kills me. He's like the fucking Swedish Mixwell. It's like you look at his talent. First of all, he can AWP, he can rifle. He's been in very good teams. He's actually had some fucking great results in his career. But it's one of those people where I'll never be able to understand people who have good skill, but they don't know it themselves. Like, you talk to them, I'm just an all right player. Well, I can't make you think you're really good, can I? I mean, obviously, the only scenario in which fucking Twist actually turns his career around is if we have a Freaky Fridays type scenario where Dennis's personality is injected into him. Then Dennis goes, fucking hell, this is what feels like to have working hand-eye coordination. And I think I'm good anyway, due to being a fucking daft wee bastard. Well, what do you know? Time for me to fucking dominate this motherfucking game. Step aside, Nico.
A daft wee bastard.
I told you, I've had to change up my whole terminology to keep him off the trail.
Yeah, good man.
I'm drawing from all the.
You've fooled everyone. Yeah. You've fooled everyone.
Raspy Nebsit.
Yeah. I miss him. But yeah, I've said about Twist before. He had so many times to be in great teams, and apparently he's got this philosophy where it's like, he doesn't want to play a nip because he doesn't necessarily get along with those guys. He's had his opportunities to join other big teams. Apparently he's not about that. He just wants to, the quote that always makes me know straight away, this guy's never going to do anything despite talent. I just like to play get the fuck out of the pro scene then. Go on a death match. Fuck off.
I know.
You know, like what does play for fun mean in a professional context? I don't want you to be having fun. I want you to be fucking sweating, grafting away, miserable as fuck, and winning trophies. That's what it should all be about. Fun comes after your professional fucking career. You know what I mean? So if you expect the team to be all, we're just having a great time in that, here's what you end up with. You end up with fucking Shox and Smiths. That's what we don't want to win. I mean, we're going to come to that because there's a fan patron question. I like to make that distinction. But okay. I think Shox will get to the end of his career and look back and think about what could have been while he's drinking, a nice red wine in a vineyard somewhere, writing fucking poetry, haikus, and be like, I could have done way more, but I hitched my career to people who weren't fit to lace my boots, and I never really had the real drive, the real drive to win. And Twist is kind of almost like a Swedish equivalent, not as good as Shox, but we've seen him go to tournaments, put on MVP level performances, and yet here he is languishing in fucking godsend. He doesn't seem sad about it. He should be.
Exactly.
You're playing with fucking Brolan, for fuck's sake.
Oh, dude, the sickest thing about him, like, this just shows to me that, again, it's just he doesn't have a winner's mentality, is you remember when he was in that Fnatic lineup, which at the E-League Major made top 4 because they beat Gambit, and then they played against Astralis. They had that really cool game on Cash, and then obviously Astralis beat them because Astralis was a better team. But, they had a pretty solid run, right? He'd got that. For him, that should have been like, I'm back. Top 4 at a major. I'm playing with Olaf Meister and Dennis. Yeah, maybe we need to tweak the lineup a bit, but maybe we get a player in there. No joke. Essentially, if I had to characterize it, he had the sort of mentality of like, when that move happened where they brought back the old Fnatic line, he was like, phew, fucking hell, I'm glad to get out of that. I had to go to America. I had to play all these days of the tournament. The whole time I was thinking, fucking hell, I want to be back home on FPL with my friends, fucking hell. Like, just get out the scene.
Yeah. Right.
It is a Christmas episode, isn't it?
Yeah, you can tell, mate. So look, I'll save, because for the New Year's episode, it's going to be a bit more abstract, a bit of fun. I'm going to come up with ideas, might bring a guest on. So I'm going to keep the ESL IEM Katowice format, which you've given glowing reviews to online, because we'll be doing another show in a few days anyway, once we get past Christmas and that. So we'll bring that up there. Also, just as a little teaser, all right, I got sent a message, Duncan, and it was on my YouTube, and I rarely check the messages there because it's usually just hot fucking garbage. You can imagine, kill yourself, blah, blah, But I look through occasionally, and there was one, and it was addressed to both of us, and it was from one of these people over on the Vac Sucks subreddit, who obviously believe all the pros are cheating, and Valve are in on the conspiracy, and me and you are in on the conspiracy. And they sent a new video by that guy, the concept over, and the message was, when will you and Thorin just wake the fuck up? So we got to get woke, right? So I think what we'll do for the New Year's stuff is we're gonna talk about these more abstract concepts, and I think we'll do it. We'll talk about that video.
So should we watch it before then?
Yeah. I'll link you to it, right, brother? I'll send it to you. So we're gonna do that. But just to wrap up the show, today we're gonna do patron questions. Well done to all our $100 plus patrons for sending in questions this time. So Detlef Insomniac asks, if Simple was a free agent, which team would you put him on, and whom would you replace? I mean, this is a very fucking broad question, isn't it? Because, first of all, I think of Simple as a free agent. I always think just get him out of Navi. But the beauty of it is, as he's proven in various points in his career with Team Liquid, you can slot this guy into any team.
He's a super sub, isn't he?
Yeah. Even a very mediocre team, and he immediately elevates you to the level of tournament contenders. So it's such a broad question because you can literally put him anywhere, right?
Yes. Yeah. So for me, the main thing is, like, I know in this scenario, maybe I'm supposed to think, just it's hypothetical, just go with the flow. But realistically, from knowing what I know about him, it probably has to be a team where we're going to hope the first 3 months is fucking dynamite. He's probably not going to be in this team for a year, and we all know what can happen. So I'd have to pick a team that I think is established enough where if you put him in, he'd be the piece that would kick it over. So I'd have to say, logically, probably Gambit. I think if you put him on a team like Gambit, he's obviously a mad player. They've got so many good, consistent players in that team. They've even crafted some sort of weird style that half works, So I think you add in the insane fragging power of Simple, you could probably get some fucking tournament wins with that team.
For me, I think I've alluded to this before. I would love to see him at Optic. I would like
a good one, yeah.
I would like to see what they could be elevated to if they had like a genuine, bona fide world star player. They've got very solid players in that team. I think they can be a top 10 team in the world with the fucking roster they've got if they keep going in the direction they're going. If not, certainly they're going to be there or thereabouts, 11th and 12th. But if you were to add someone like Simple to the mix, I think that would obviously put them over the top. And suddenly, you're talking about them breaking into that middle of the pack, the 5th to 8th kind of area. You certainly have to put them ahead of like Team Liquid at that point if they're not there already. Are they battering the likes of Cloud9? And all of a sudden, I think Optic would look very, very good. And Optic are an organization that realistically can make it happen. Maybe not now with these 2 years extensions, where it's probably like in ES Force. It's like you have to give you fucking liver and $500,000 fucking dollars or something just to get him. But yeah, I mean, for me, I always wished Simple had taken to North American life a bit better, because he said he found it a very like isolationist experience when he was at Team Liquid. He struggled being away from his family, away from his girlfriend. Team Liquid did everyone a disservice by not helping him bed into the American lifestyle. But equally, he says he loves the country and he loves to visit America. He just doesn't feel like in his current, life he can live there. So I'd love to, the fact that Optic now are in Europe, it gives him an opportunity to play for this huge brand, European based. He's close to his family and friends. Would love to see that. But, probably not. Equally as well, just as a wild card, it's completely untenable. But if Virtus Pro would ever get past the whole must be Polish thing, slotting him in there.
There's so many players that applies to, though, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously. But just imagine a world where, I don't know, Neo finally decides to hang up the mouse and he comes out and he does like, this big press conference and everything. And he says, there is only one player who can be the one. And he brings Simple out and for he is the Kwisatz Haderach, and everyone cheers. That's a sick reference. And then, Simple becomes the next Neo in that team. And he's playing with the likes of Pasha, Bialy, Snacks. They all get a lift again. Snacks and Simple playing together is something I would like to see. I think sure. Those two could definitely play off each other.
Okay, here's my last one, though. Yeah. The obvious one to me is just kick out JDM and put Simple in there, because first of all, it'd be fun, and secondly, fuck all their lives.
Okay, good, excellent. Merry Christmas once again. And then the last question comes from Jerky's Minion, obviously a regular on all of the stuff we do on this channel. He said, if Shox were to be replaced on G2, who would you slot in? And again, this is one of those questions where it's like, if it was unlimited and we weren't linguistically bound by the fact they're a French team and they only want to look at French players, possibilities would be pretty interesting, right? But unfortunately, we are limited to French players. And honestly, right now, outside of that kid who said he can't go pro yet, I forgot his name.
Zwiyu or something.
Yeah, Zwiyu. There's not really anybody that's knocking on the door to say, I'm going to be the next big French superstar. So I suppose at that point, you have to just say, well, RPK's putting up the numbers in 2017 that Shox should have been. So maybe you go back. Maybe Le Tank is the answer. But for me, I don't know if there's a clear replacement for Shox, even though Shox has been underwhelming this year.
Well, their obvious problem is that he's not exactly doing a great job at it, but they need an in-game leader, don't they? So I don't really know what answer you go with for that one.
Shox is not and never will be an in-game leader. I don't even think of him in those terms. He just isn't that guy. I don't know why he tries to be that guy. You're not that guy. No. How do you? I don't know, Duncan. It's like if you woke up one day and said, right, you know what? I love making content and talking about esports and all that. And, I love talking about politics and SJWs and all that other stuff and books and art and all the things you're interested in. He said, but you know what? I just think, fuck it. Even though I've had success in that area, I'm just going to leave it. And what I'm going to move into now is interpretive dance. And you just started recording videos of you doing all this shit with handkerchiefs. And I'd be like, Duncan, you're having a fucking breakdown. I'd call up your parents and I'd get them to put you in care until you got better again. Who's doing that for Shox? Everyone's.
The worst part is they're all fucking enabling it. Like, the stupidest part is, like, listen, I understand how they got to this position. It's a very simple story. Existence bombed so many majors in a row, none of them could trust him, right? I'm totally on board with that. I get it. I do think at this point in time, once you've got so few options, sometimes you have to go back on the same ground and give it another try. But okay, fair play. Once you've bombed like the 5 majors in a row, yeah, I can understand why you're like, I cannot trust you anymore. I have trust issues. Then you have Happy, who it was working like a motherfucker, except we have to kick people constantly because his style can only work in one way. And finally, even his style gets worn out. And guess what? We're back to bombing all majors again. So at this point in time, there is nobody that they can hire. There's nobody in the French-Belgian scene that's an in-game leader that has the chops to do it. So you'd already be taking a chance on someone. So what happens is Shox, for whatever reason, because 2016 was him just going like, right, I'll just do everything myself. I've done that. It was good, but still didn't get me there. So now we clearly need an in-game leader. I'll do it. The problem is, this is the flaw there, right? Every good in-game leader I've ever seen either was always an in-game leader or was usually a supportive, intelligent, cerebral type player who said, you know what, I will now dedicate my life to be an in-game leader. I am all in. First of all, I don't believe Shox has ever been all in on doing this. I think he just does it because he has to, because someone has to. And I think the idea that, well, if no one else will, I guess I'll have to, is the worst reason I can think of to do a really, really hard job. Because in-game leader isn't even like when players, for example, we were talking about him earlier in this episode. So Rubino at times in his career isn't a support player, but when he needed to be, when it called him on, yes, he could do it. The difference is that's still just playing a role. Yeah, you give up some aspects, you maybe have to do some shittier jobs. In-game leader is the most time-consuming fucking job in the game, and it is the most demoralizing when you're not winning, because you're calling loads of shit. Half of it maybe even's good. Maybe you had the right read. Your team's not pulling it off. It's like, think about if you were trying to teach someone, right? Say you haven't got a background in music, but you get half decent at the guitar, and then a kid comes in who's never played a guitar and he says, could you teach me to play it? And you go, I'll give it a go. And you're teaching him and he couldn't go, oh no, you're supposed to do it. It's supposed to be, no, you're doing it quite a bit wrong. See, you wouldn't have any chops to do it, would you? And not only that, it'd just make you frustrated at the end. So I feel like, yeah, that's an experiment which, give it a try, but has it not run its fucking course now? Come on.
I know, but
and you're wasting away such a sick player by doing it.
Yeah, that's what I've never understood. It's like, look, I know where it comes from. Like, basically, I've known Richard many, many years. He takes it upon himself to, if there's something wrong in the team, he is the guy who immediately looks to fix it. So if the issue is leadership, he goes, well, I will be the leader. And it's like, no, you just got to play, you got to play sicker. That's all you need to do. If you're already at peak form, it's not on you to fix the other problems. Somebody is either got to get cut from the team, or they need to change the way they play, or they need to elevate their game, or you need to actually change your player. That's how it's done in every other team. You don't get your star player and say, right, we don't have a competent AWPer, so we're going to give one of the best riflers to ever touch the game, the AWP now, and hope it works. Happens all the time. Shox, whenever the team starts to struggle, Shox will pick up the AWP. I don't think of him as a hybrid player. He can use the AWP just because he has such good hand-eye coordination, but what you gain by having him on a primary AWP or a secondary AWP, you just lose from having a guy who will drop 30 on a rifle. Then in terms of in-game leaders, honestly, I don't think he has a great tactical mind. I think he's always been an intuitive player, a player who, like, he feels the game. He doesn't read the game.
Put it this way, okay. Think about that very recent story we heard after G2 went out of, I think it was Auckland, right? That thing when NBK tweeted, like, look, me and NKJ just did all these hours of demo research and where the fuck Shox? He's the in-game leader, mate. What are you talking about? Why are you and the analyst reviewing a demo and writing loads of... Where is the in-game leader involved in this process?
Yeah, and this is what I mean. Why you bring up MBK? I mean, like, for me, he's the guy who I don't know. I think he's the sleeper guy that could be a fucking genius, a tactical mastermind. But I think what he does is he kind of hangs back and he's always the guy who will plug the gaps as well, right? Like, but he never imposes his will on the team. That's the crazy thing. He's just the guy, right? Okay, well, I'll do this. He never says everyone else needs to step up and do this.
I also have a theory on that, though, which is that I think the reason why he doesn't is, right, while, yes, he's a guy who's absolutely unselfish and will play whatever roles needed and definitely has given up his years of being a star player. People don't know he could be a fucking star player tomorrow if you put him in the right team.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely. But Like, for example, if he went to LDLC tomorrow, I guarantee Eld Existence would just base the fucking team around him and he'd be he'd be the reign of that fucking team. Not on that level at the moment, but he'd be very, very good is my point. But I have a theory that in those French teams, if I've seen the way it's gone for Existence and then Happy, and now what's happened with Shox, I think that they're, for some reason in their teams, because they just seem to be oblivious to problems, then in denial of problems, then finally they realize there's a problem, but it's the end of the world, the sky's falling. The fucking El Capitane is the one who gets killed in the revolution, isn't it? So I don't want to be the in-game leader when the fucking villagers come up that hill with the pitchforks, you know? It doesn't tend to end up well for those guys.
No, I dig it. And, you know, I think as well, like, MBK is probably thinking a little bit ahead into the future, you know, like, as well, like, what he does after it. I think he's one of the few guys, you know, always been super savvy about branding and, you know, what he's going to... He was one of the guys who knuckled down and learned English before any of these sort of older, more senior French players did, because he knew, I'll be the spokesperson for the team, I'll do all the interviews, I'll do this. Like you said, just a smart kid, always has been. And yeah, I don't know. The problem of Shox as an IGL is one that just is going to perplex me for the rest of the time, I think. But speaking of time, we're out of time, so we're gonna wrap the show up here. So obviously, from me, from Duncan, from Sam, we wish you all a Merry Christmas and happy holidays, whatever you're celebrating over this festival period. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. And of course, our patrons that make the show possible, who are Big Hungry, Chris Enwin, Detlef Insomniac, Matthias Pietkowski, Jerky's Minion, and in our $50 patrons, Funky Boy, Sadsawar, Daniel Plamanov Yordanov, Marcus Kyunpar, CMFX, Carl Oscar Garcia Firm, Humongous Watt, and William Southern. So we're going to wrap the show up here. Thanks a lot for watching another episode of By the Timestamps. We'll see you next time.